The fourth round of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series said drivers head over to Elkhart Lake to Road America. The track that's 40 miles in length exactly, has 14 corners and is one of the toughest challenges of road racing in North America. However, before you go racing, you have to qualify, and that is what drivers are doing right now here at Road America as they try and get themselves to pole position at Elkhart Lake. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to qualifying here on iRacing Live and RaceSpotTV for the fourth round of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. Wolverhampton along with Scott Woodwist and Jake Cameron as the drivers are now out on the racetrack. They have themselves 15 minutes to do the fastest laps they possibly can, and on such a long racetrack, make one mistake, you could be falling well down the order. Scott, I'm going to come to you first. The cars are out on the track, but difficult conditions here today. It's cloudy, 82 degrees Fahrenheit, a southerly wind of 11 miles an hour, and it's also a little bit muggy as well, as well as the humidity is 54%.
Absolutely, and of course the wind conditions means, of course, we're going to get, as I wrongly predicted in the pre-season pre-race show, which I apologise for. It's actually a headwind down the pit straight and a tailwind down towards turn 5. A very crucial corner this weekend, as there's no margin for error. Literally, you run off there, you will get a black flag or a disallowed time. So this is going to be pretty crucial. Some key corners, of course, like the high-speed run through the kink. Canada corners always dangerous, but going to be pretty crucial, of course, with those cloudy conditions. Not as murky as we saw back at Suzuka, but it's certainly going to affect those out there. Of course, the race humidity, of course, is also going to play a factor, but of course it's all key to who can get that best lap and hook it up around this 4-mile circuit to get pole position for this afternoon's Grand Prix.
Now, there are a couple of things that drivers need to know at this racetrack. The most prevalent of them is down at turn number 5. We'll get ourselves a image of this up on your screen in a moment's time, but turn 5, Scott, it's got this asphalt area on the outside of the corner. Drivers are not allowed to put all 4 wheels on the curb or on the asphalt area, otherwise they'll have whatever time they set disallowed in qualifying. In the race, if they do that and they gain time or they advance a position, they'll get themselves a black flag or a post-race penalty if there are any protests by drivers.
Yeah, and that's going to make sure that those guys don't mess their braking point up. They're going to have to be a lot more careful and think a lot more carefully when they do hit that middle pedal down towards hit that brake pedal down towards the braking zone for that corner. I mean, it's so easy for drivers to completely miss it and just be carried away with trying to look at their best splits on their lap times, or if they're battling on track with somebody in the race. And it can always mean effectively, especially if you gain advantage, that can be pretty crucial. So as long as they're not gaining time and they're not taking taking liberties with it, effectively they shouldn't have too much trouble as long as they can do their best to keep off it. If they don't, they're going to be in trouble with the stewards and get themselves a bit of a slap wrist.
Alexei Usiakola has done his first qualifying time, a 1:30.150, currently on provisional pole position. Provisionally in the second spot, Alex Simpson in third, Yori Tamana in fourth, and Prix provisionally rounds out your top 5. Drivers on the racetrack include Gregor Hutu. We'll go on board with him as he starts the first of his lap. Now, there's so many things for Hutu that he has to deal with this weekend. It's his worst start to an iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series in his 5-year history. It's the first time ever that he's had back-to-back races without being on the podium, and right now, Scott, he has to get pole position as he runs down into turn number 5.
He really does. This is the man, of course, who's won the past 2 races here at Road America. He is the current king of Elkhart Lake. He needs all the luck and all the pace he can get as he heads down towards turn 5. And as we say that, we have a new provisional pole sitter, Hugo Luis. But that's pretty naughty there from Hugo Luis. Put all 4 wheels across the curb, but not past it. So that's going to be pretty something that the stewards may have to look at pretty carefully. But as we come across here, there is a crosswind up here towards Hurry Downs, down towards this complex. So that could be pretty effective down towards that section. But Gregor with a pretty trouble-free lap so far. Going to have to be careful not to run too wide in some of those corners, but we're coming up to 2 very fearsome parts of the course now, the kink and then Canada corner. This could possibly make or break the lap that decides whether or not Hugo's on pole or somewhere down near the bottom of the top 10.
That kink right there, the drivers have said, is incredibly difficult in both qualifying and race simulation. So, down into the corner for Gregor Hutu. He's got 2 corners left to go of this lap. This is turn number 13, Bill Mitchell-Ben. It's a lot more difficult than it looks on paper. Then, slow the car as late as you can. Wait until after the transition change, if you can, through turn 14. Up the hill you come. Can Gregor Hutu get himself onto provisional pole position as he comes past the start-finish line? The answer is going to be yes, he can! By just 14 1,000ths of a second. Hutu to the point for the time being. It is very close, however. Hugo Luis is on another lap. He comes through Bill Mitchell-Ben, turn number 13, underneath the Cola Bridge, down into turn number 14. Will he be able to improve? Will he be able to snatch back provisional pole position from that number 1 Team Redline car as he comes underneath the Caterpillar Bridge towards the start-finish line? And Hugo Luis is going to not go faster. He has got 1 more lap to go, however. And for Luis, it is now all or nothing for him.
This is going to be pretty crucial. He is the man, of course, that he's currently leading the championship, has had the best possible start out of his major rivals, of course. He had a 2nd place at Spa, a win at his home race in Interlagos, and then a 3rd place at that awesome race at Suzuka. And now he wants to carry that momentum as he heads underneath the Sargento Bridge down towards that very tricky turn 5. Let's take a look at his line through here and how much outside curb he takes. Under brakes hard as he pitches it left. And he uses all 4, kicks up a tiny bit of dust. So that is allowed, but putting your wheels past that line is going to be, past that curb is not going to be deemed legal. So heads now down towards Hurry Downs, pretty tight so far, but he's got such a fine margin to make up of about 14,000ths of a second to make up on Hugo Luis, on Gregor Hutu. So this is where just those tiny little details in the lap, those extra little bits of steering, there's getting that throttle that fraction earlier is going to make the difference between starting just in 2nd place on the front row and getting that all important track position at the first lap down towards turn 1.
So then, Hugo Luis is on what will be his final lap. He will come down into Canada corner, and he gets a little bit loose there. That really could cost him. Bill Mitchell-Ben, turn number 13. He has got now just 1 more corner to go in qualifying. He was very loose through Canada. That really could cost him the chance of getting himself pole position. He will come up, and he will come past the start finish line. Will Hugo Luis be to get himself to pole position? The answer is going to be yes, he will, by 6/100ths of a second. Hugo Luis is to the point. We'll be right back in just 1 second's time. So then, it is currently Hugo Luis who is on provisional pole position. However, it's not all over for Hutu as he has got himself a half a lap to go. He is down right now into turn number 5, and he goes a little bit wide there on the exit of the corner. I'm wondering whether that might get his lap disallowed, but half a lap to go for Gregor Hutu. It is 6/100ths of a second, the distance between those 2 drivers right now. Alexei Usiakola hasn't done another lap. In 4th place right now is Martin Kroenke. 5th place, Andre Borges. 6th, Alex Simpson. Yorni Tamada in 7th, Isaac Price in 8th. And then Mo Garfilo in 9th, and Martin Patila rounds out your top 10 for the time being. However, for Gregor Hutu, he comes through that kink 1 more time as he is on the final of his qualification laps. Can he close that 6/100th of a second gap to his arch rival, his nemesis, Hugo Luis? He is also a little bit slippery there through Canada corner. Oli Picard moves up into provisional 3rd place in the number 27 Glacier Racing car, and that will be as fast as he can go because he's done all of his laps. But it is right now Gregor Hutu coming up the hill. Will he be able to get himself back to pole position? The answer is going to be no, he can't. Hugo Luis, pole position.
And that's a pretty crucial pole position for Hugo Luis to continue that momentum he has in the championship. But Gregor is on the front row, and that affects him. If he wants to make it 3 race victories here at Road America, that's a crucial place he needs to be. And the start is all important. Remember we saw back at Suzuka when Alexei Usiakola managed to put himself alongside Luis down towards turn 1. If Hutu can do exactly the same, he can put himself as the pace setter for this race. So he's got to take a page out of Yakola's book from Suzuka and see if he can do exactly the same, because that will put him in the best possible chance to make it 3 wins in a row here at this circuit.
Of course, though, Gregor Hutu had a very sluggish start. In fact, both the red line drivers had a slow start. We're going to go and have a look at Paul Ilbrink right now as he comes up the hill. Let's see whether that number 29 Radical Steel Series car can improve. The answer is going to be no, he won't. He will remain in the 15th position on the racetrack. And Stephen Michaels is coming down into turn number 5 right now. Kazuki Omishima is coming up to complete the last of his qualifying laps. He does not improve his qualifying time, so he remains in the 20th position, and it is just Stephen Michaels, Fulvio Barazzini left on the racetrack. Barazzini is starting a lap, and it looks as though that Michaels right now is just actually starting his qualifying laps. He's only going to get, I think, this lap and the next lap in, Scott.
Well, you may have possibly left it a little bit later to try and let the track rubber in a little bit more to see if you can get a little bit more grip on the track. But, I mean, Michael's now coming through the kink. He definitely seems to have plenty of confidence in that car, and he's going to push down towards Canada Corner, and we'll see exactly where he can place himself. But he, as you say, has certainly left it rather late. Of course, it's only about a minute and a half or so, roughly about that left in the session. So he's, as I said, only going to get a chance to do one lap. So effectively, this is going to be deal or die for him. If he does make any mistake, major mistake, he's going to find himself way down the order with a lot of work to do this afternoon.
And Stephen Michaels will come up the hill underneath the Caterpillar Bridge. Let's see what he can do as he comes past the start-finish line. A 1:33.7 for him for his first lap. That is 22nd position. He will be able to get this next lap in. That will be his last lap, however. So just 2 laps in qualifying for Stephen Michaels. Fulvio Barazzini right now is scored on the racetrack as well. He is coming down into Canada Corner. He has got himself now just 2 corners left to go. Runs it very wide through Canada, but nice on that curbing through Mitchell Bend for Barazzini in that number 6 Triple M car. And of course, Barazzini is trying to bounce back after a difficult start to his season. Out of turn number 14, up the hill he comes. Can Fulvio Barazzini get himself any higher on the race grid than 24th? The answer is going to be he improves his time and moves up into P20 on the racetrack, but that is not what Fulvio Barazzini really wanted to have happen to him. Stephen Michaels is coming down into the carousel underneath the Speedville Bridge, because after all, sausage is what we do. And Michaels comes through the carousel, and just a couple of corners left for him to go. A tidy lap there for Michaels. However, that Twister Racing car is looking to get himself on pace with his teammate. And not sure really about Michaels right now. Does seem to be he's left it a little bit late and not really had too much in this session.
Well, you may have left it a little bit late to try and see, to get a bit of a marker to exactly how much everyone is, but of course leaving it late is always a risk, so we'll have to see in the last couple of corners if he's found any more time in his final few sectors coming up towards the end of the session. The clock's about to tick down, so in fact it already has ticked down. Let's see where he can place himself, if he can improve.
And Michaels comes up past the start-finish line, and it's going to be a 1:33.765 for him. He does not improve his time at all. In fact, that lap didn't count for Michaels because it did after the qualifications ended, so Michaels did not get his second lap in. He will start all the way down in the 23rd place on the grid. Up front, however, Hugo Louise pole position, and this is what he said at a racetrack he was actually struggling at yesterday to me. Gregor Hutu second place. However, you've got to keep an eye out on those 2 Glacier boys starting P3 and 4, Scott, because after all, they had a great start at Suzuka. If Picardo gets a good start, he could be challenging for that race lead down into turn number 1.
Absolutely, and also don't class out Martin Kroenke. He had a great start also back in Interlagos alongside his teammates. So this is going to be a pretty exciting turn 1 for the top 5 on this grid at least. Also, guys, you shouldn't really be ruling out either. Andre Bertrand there as well. Also, Yoni Tomala and Alex Simpson could also get good starts. Isaac Price also impressed in a few races, of course. He had a great start in the season finale last year when he made one of his first few races in the iRacing WCS in Montreal. So he could definitely be a dark horse to watch for if he can hook up that start correct. But yeah, the front row is a big one, of course. It's the 2 perennial rivals, Luis and Hutu. And to be fair, Hutu needs the better result more than Luis does. In fact, because he's the one with the up and down starts of the season. Luis leads it comfortably at the moment. But of course, the run down to turn 1 is going to be oh so exciting when those lights go out in just a few minutes' time later on.
So then, confirmation of qualifying results from the 4th round of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series, and it is Hugo Louise with a time of 1:33.026 who claimed pole position by just 6/100ths of a second from Team Redline's Gregor Hutu. He'll be starting alongside him in row number 1. Row 2 is a Glacier Racing lockout with Oli Picardo in 3rd and Alexei Usiakola in 4th. Martin Kroenke in 5th for 3RD Motorsports. with Andre Borcha lining up alongside him in row number 3. Alex Simpson for Apex Racing in P7, Yorni Tamada for Prix in P8. Row number 5, Isaac Price and Mo Garfilo. Row 6, Marta Patila and Jake Sturgios. Jeremy Bouteloup and Christian Laurent in row number 7. Paul Ilbrink and Yuhu Abe in row 8. Ricardo Mulia and Timo Evelyn in row number 9. Ilka Hapana and Fulvio Barazzini round out your top 20. 35 drivers attempted to qualify here at Road America. All 35 will start the race. The slowest driver, well, that is Jason Lover with a time of 1 minute 34.540. The entire field separated by just 1.5 seconds on the racetrack. As we continue with pre-race coverage here on iRacing Live and RaceSpotTV. And Scott, as far as the start of this race goes, I do think back to 2 weeks ago at Suzuka, because it was a very slow start for Gregor Hutu in that number 1 Team Redline car. He needs to get his starting demons out of the way, and he really needs to get himself a blinding start. But it's uphill here for these drivers, and that run down into turn number 1, it's very narrow. We've seen some huge incidents before. One driver spins their tyres, it can really be game over.
Yeah, you're not wrong at all. But the fact that Hutu's actually been able to win, especially last year from pole position, means he's not estranged from starting on the uphill sections of this course. I mean, if he was able to do it last year, there's no reason why he wouldn't be able to do it this year. But as you said, the past couple of starts he's had haven't been electric. He has struggled a little bit to get that car off the line. And in some cases, it's who can get the better second phase of the start off the grid when they drop that clutch that can really get the traction down off the line. So, but as you said, the two Glacier Racing boys, especially, of course, Ollie Picola and Alexei Usiakola, of course, Usiakola with that fantastic start to pull alongside Luis and grab the race lead. If the guys in front don't drop their clutch quick enough and don't get themselves a smooth enough start, we could be possibly even seeing, well, a Glacier Racing 1-2 down towards turn 1. It could happen based on what we had in Suzuka 2 weeks ago.
It could indeed. And for those of you who are just joining us, good afternoon and welcome to RaceSpotTV's and iRacing Live's exclusively live coverage of the 4th round of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series from Road America. Qualifying is in the books. Lights out is in 21 minutes time exactly. And of course, all of that race will be here on RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live. Up on your screen, you're going to have a look back at that qualifying lap for Hugo Louise. And one of the things about this racetrack is, when a lap doesn't look fast, actually it kind of does. And I think that's what you can really say about Hugo Louise. That first lap did look a little bit scruffy, and he kind of alluded to it down in turn number 5. Very scruffy, very close to the track margins. That final lap by Hugo, however, very smooth. Turn 1, just having a look through that again, just picture perfect. And then turn 2 as well. You just clip the curbs, but you don't abuse them. And that 3D Motorsports car has always been good at just nursing the car over those rumble strips, over those curbs, and we've shown that there once again today.
Yeah, it's all about having the right feel for the machine you have underneath you. I mean, it's a universal fact that effectively the less you drive the car in terms of your movements and how much you stamp the throttle and everything, and if you're more careful with your movements, effectively the less you drive the car, the more time you gain and the faster you'll go. It's a simple fact. I mean, yes, the whole car sliding around looks quite fast, it looks quite flamboyant, but in actual fact you're losing a lot of time because you're not getting the right traction and grip and stability that you want to put together a fast lap. And I think Hugo managed to really realise that between the 2 laps that he set. Of course, as we said, the first one a little bit scruffy in some places, but he thought, okay, let's just take a seat back here, let's just go ahead and try that again, because he learned his lesson from the lap before, and he went ahead and reapplied himself through that corner, really made it a much smoother exit, and that's what gave him the time he needed. There's the extra few hundredths that he was looking for to get himself onto pole position on the front row that could potentially take him, if he gets a good enough start, to a race victory, his second of the season this year.
I'm having a look back at that replay though. Canada corner, it was very close to him binning that lap completely. Now you do a run on that rumble strip on the exit of the corner. It does seem to be the angle of attack which he got it. He was really fighting the wheel for the exit of that corner. Very lucky that he didn't bin it there, because otherwise he would have started down in P2 on the racetrack. But at the same time, very good car control there by Hugo Louise, and also that gap, had he not made that small incident at Canada, he could have been into the 1 minute 32s.
Quite possibly. It's obviously something that Hugo, of course, if he'd be able to put together that lap, of course, the lap time's been very close to being a sub 133 lap time, which of course would have been incredible. But yeah, it would have been incredible to see him actually make that kind of lap time, because of course we know what kind of a caliber driver Hugo Louise is, to be able to push forward and be able to get that extra few tenths. And Obviously, Gregor would have seen that and thought, I probably pushed as hard as I could have done, but maybe Hugo just found that little bit extra speed on one or two turns where maybe he was a little bit sooner on the throttle, or his line was a bit more tighter through a certain corner. So it's all going to be down to, as we said, the start's all crucial, but yeah, a great lap from Hugo Lloris to get himself another pole position in his career.
So, plenty of things to talk about. A couple of drivers that have stood out for me so far. Guys from the smaller teams. The first one of them, Alex Simpson, a 133.371 for him. 7th place in the number 35 Apex Racing car. Isaac Price leading the charge for iRacing right now in that 9th place in number 36 machine. And again, a good qualifying by Mo Garfilo in the number 10 Radical Steel Series car. 3 drivers who, they normally finish in and around the top 10, but starting as well as they are in this race, I think one of those drivers could very easily end up in the top 5.
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, these guys obviously are the ones that are like to keep it mostly out of trouble and just basically just run around at their own kind of pace, but do so they're close enough in the top 10 to secure those points they need. So, I mean, Isaac Price has shown his potential before. We've seen that. Obviously, Andre Bircher's perfectly capable, as is Jody Tomala and Mo Garfilo. All these guys are. The guys just outside it. Well, Jake Sturridge just surprising a little bit. Maybe hasn't been on exactly the same pace as we'd like to see him in previous times, but Jake certainly in 12th position. I probably would have expected him to be a little bit higher up the grid. Same with possibly Pete drivers like Jeremy Bouteloup as well, 13th place. And this is a circuit for Jeremy where he's actually had some fairly decent results in the past. I mean, in 2012 he was in 5th position, and last year he don't believe he actually made a start at all last year. But 5th place for him in 2012. Certainly it's a circuit that he enjoys. So maybe again, if he can get a good start, which is, of course, we're constantly talking about how good the start is, but with the nature of the circuit and how this long front straight is very steep and uphill for the most part of it. It's all going to be about, effectively, if these guys can put themselves in amongst the front runners. If they can possibly upset the apple cart and maybe cause one or two surprises that we weren't necessarily expecting.
And then towards the rear of the field, some drivers who stood out for me for, in some ways, the wrong reasons. Jason Lovatt in last place, 1 minute 34.5. But then Stephen Michaels, of course, he had that second lap that he did not count. But then you'll have Fabio Barazini at the very rear end of the top 20. You have people like, for example, Ilka Hapada and Timo Ivonen very close to the rear of the top 20. Some of these guys are struggling, and as I said last race, the INX Racing guys overall are struggling right now.
Yeah, this could very well be a bit of a transition year for INX, probably to try and get themselves into a much better position and a much better state, of course, going forward in this championship, because they may possibly be looking to, just build on the base in which their team and just build their kind of how they work themselves throughout the season and possibly going towards 2015. I mean, this is a team that was before it was the third best team behind 3ID Motorsport and Team Redline, but of course now that mantle seems to have apparently been taken up, if at least temporarily, by Glacier Racing with Pacala and with UC Acola. So I think INX they'll try and push as hard as they can, but effectively it means that they're going to have a lot of work to do ahead of them. But of course, yeah, it all depends on, again, if they can keep themselves out of trouble. This is a circuit where, because it's so high speed, you put one wheel just fractionally onto the grass, or just snatch a brake, or just miss your breaking point completely. It can cause chaos and take several drivers out who were just innocently minding their own business and may find themselves in the barrier and the gravel. So it's those that can really just keep themselves out of trouble and just assess what's going on in front of them the best, and keep their noses out of any of the incidents that will possibly find themselves surprisingly in the points with a decent finish.
Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, for more information about the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series, head over to wcs.iracing.com with driver interviews, with team biographies, and of course full race results and archives as well for the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series, and also the Peak Anti-Freeze NASCAR Series powered by iRacing.com. And also, if you're a new member to iRacing, head over to iRacing.com to get yourself half price off all memberships for a 1 month, 3 month, 1 year or 2 year subscription as low as just $6, and you can join the massively multiplayer online racing service with over 45,000 members worldwide that is known as iRacing.com. So head over to iRacing.com right now for more information. Right, Scott, this racetrack, we talked about Turn 5 in qualifying, we'll talk about it now in terms of the race. And as far as the race goes, you cannot advance your position, you cannot gain time by running on that asphalted area through turn number 5. However, on that first lap, it might be you have to go there just to avoid any impending drama.
Yeah, but the key thing is, as long as they're not getting any kind of advantage, of course. If they're just backing off to avoid an incident, that's perfectly acceptable. If they're running off there purely so they can try and gain time, or to keep a gap to the car around them, or to close up to a car in front of them, then of course that's going to raise the eye of the stewards, obviously going forwards, and they're going to get themselves a serious penalty. So it just means effectively you can use it, and obviously, but only in the right context, and not take liberties with it. So we are going to see probably 1 or 2 drivers miss their braking point and go straight on. That's acceptable. That happens in any form of motorsport. Not everyone can get their braking right at every single turn of every single corner, every single race that they run. So there are going to be some drivers that we're going to have to utilise it, but it all depends on for the stewards on in what manner they use it and in what context they are actually either if they're gaining time or if they're actually just losing time and just to back off so they can get back onto the track. If it's the latter, not a problem. If it's the former, they're going to find themselves in serious trouble if they're a repeat offender this afternoon.
And, of course, we talked about this in WCS Spotlight, which, of course, for those of you who are new to WCS, takes place on the top of the hour before qualifying. That's with myself, Scott Woodwis, and Nick Rowland, as we break down everything that happened in the previous round of the championship, as well as looking forward as well, because that's what we like to do. But I talked about that section, turn 6 through turn 8. That first lap, I think, is going to be critical for these drivers, because if they can be close coming out of turn 8 through that carousel, going to be some great passing down into Canada corner on lap 1.
Oh yeah, but it's like I said before. Obviously, I think the even more crucial corner is going to be through the kink and off the exit of the carousel, because it's the run you get through off of carousel and through the kink that's going to set you up as to whether or not you're going to be lined up for a pass if you've got someone chasing you. Now we know, of course, through the kink, that it's obviously means it's all down to just how much dirty air there is that affects it. But if you can stay close and have a good enough car that deals with dirty air to put yourself alongside, as I've said, it's all about where you got your car positioned alongside another driver by the time you get halfway down the straight. Because if you're already there by the time you're halfway down on the inside towards Canada corner, effectively that is trap position, because you know the braking zone is so crucial to get down there, because you have such a long gravel trap at the end of Canada corner. If you go straight on, it's a one-way ticket straight to the barriers. So it's going to be quite intriguing to see how many drivers can get that crucial run they need in order to gain those positions that they want to try and get, especially if you've got guys who are on a two-stop strategy. They're the ones, of course, we said, going to have to start moving through the field as quick as they can and make those passes. So if they can utilise that technique and a few others on the crucial parts of the track, especially down towards Canada corner, could make it work for them this afternoon.
We are going to step aside for just a couple of moments' time, and then we'll be right back with exclusively live coverage of the 4th round of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. You are watching RaceSpotTV, an iRacing live presentation. We will be right back.
Simulated racing can be awesome, but can also be kind of a free-for-all. Interestingly, auto racing faced the same problem in its earlier days. Whether it was on the back roads, the beaches, or the city streets, the racing was fun, but there was always a certain level of chaos and danger, until some folks came along and put some order to all of this. Stuff like official racetracks, regulations about weight and equipment, and enforcement of standards. That's what gave us high-speed excitement, fast-paced action, and photo finishes. That's when racing became racing. The guys over at iRacing.com have made the same transformation in the world of sim racing. Sure, they've got the most accurate tracks and realistic cars out there, but that's just the start. See, iRacing analyzes the performance and results of each driver in every race, so you can be sure you're always placed in races where the competition will be tight, and that those reckless drivers who ruin it for us all are kept in the pits. Not to mention that with over 45,000 active members already in their vast community, you can find races day and night, so you can always get in on the action. You can even join a league of your favorite series. And since updates are always automatic, you don't have to worry about software and can focus on the track. Zip up your fire suit and check out iRacing.com.
The first 3 rounds of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series has seen a total of 3 different winners. Gregor Hutu won at Spa. It was all about Hugo Luis at Interlagos, and Glacier Racing took their first victory in the series with Alexei Yusiakola at Suzuka. However, it's not been that simple for Gregor Hutu. He had a DNF at Interlagos, and then he had himself a very bad 4th place finish by his standards, of course, and it's the first time in WTS history that he has not finished on the podium for 2 consecutive races. Today, he starts alongside his nemesis, Hugo Luis, as they lot out the front row of the grid here at Elkhart Lake. Road America, the track that is 4 miles in length, has 14 corners, and really, it's a beautiful racetrack that Robin Miller once called the greatest test of road racing in all of North America. Today, drivers will be battling for 47 laps as they try to take victory, and there's so many different storylines. If it's Hugo Luis, it's all about leading from the front, extending that championship advantage. If you're Gregor Hutu, it's all about getting yourself back to iRacing victory lane, getting yourself back into contention in the championship. If you're Oli Picada, Alexei Yusiakola, or Martin Conke, you want to cause an upset. You really want to make life difficult for those 2 top established drivers and show that the 2014 championship is completely wide open. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to iRacing Live and RaceSpotTV for the 4th round of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. Head over to wcs.iracing.com for more news, information about the World Championship Series, and don't forget, you can follow us on Facebook and on Twitter at RaceSpotTV. Will Vincent here along with Scott Woodwis and Jake Cameron as we get set to go racing. And Jake, I will come to you first. Jake, this is a really tough, difficult racetrack, and drivers today, they really have got to pay attention because one small incident and their race is going to be over.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, Will. One small incident here, it can cause multiple crashes, multiple cars, end of the race for all of them. Especially with the wind as well, they're going to have a horrible tailwind down through the back straight, through the kink, into Canada corner. That's going to affect them under braking. And as you say, they can't run wide down there now either.
And right now, drivers are on practice. They've got themselves about 4 minutes left of practice before they head themselves down to the starting grid for this 47-lap event. For those of you who are just joining us, the weather today, it's interesting. It's cloudy, it's 82 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a bit muggy out there with 54% relative humidity, and the big issue is the fact that it is windy. A southerly wind of 11 miles an hour, which is going to give these drivers a lot of headaches over the race, Jake, especially down at that fabled kink. And I tell you what, if you're running very close to another driver, that's really going to upset the balance of your car.
Yeah, you're definitely going to have some dirty area there. It's going to affect a lot. But these drivers, they're the best of the best. That's why they're in this series. I reckon we can see a few close shaves, but I reckon we're going to have a decent, clean race.
And right now, as far as warm-up goes, it is Juhu Abe. He's currently the fastest driver on the racetrack in that number 30 car. 21 cars have set themselves a time in practice, and drivers are struggling to deal with these conditions. Now, one of the things that we see in each of the WCS events, Jake, is that overall, really, you always see these drivers do a couple of practice starts, and pit road in the next minute or so will be very busy, with drivers coming in after a couple of laps on their tyres, getting themselves a bit of, new tyres, get themselves back out at the end of pit road, and they'll do a simulated race start, because race starts are incredibly important.
Yeah, race start is probably one of the most important things at this track. especially if you're getting loose wheel spin. It's going to cause a big one into turn 1. Just one mistake. Pit stops again. They got to get them crucial if they're going to do that one-stop strategy. All that time in the pits, that could cost them the win or second place.
And what we'll do right now is we'll run through your starting grid for this, the 4th round of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. And on pole position, it will be Hugo Louise with a qualifying time of 1 minute 33.026. Second place, Gregor Hutu with a qualifying time of 1:33.083, just 6/100ths of a second further back. Row number 2, Oli Picada and Alexei Yusiakola. Row number 3, Martin Cronke and Andre Borcha. In row number 4 is Alex Simpson and Jorni Tomala. Row 5, Isaac Price and Mogar Philo. In row 6, Mars Patilla and Jake Sturgios. Row number 7, Jeremy Bouteloup and Christian Laurent, with Paul Ilbrink and Yuhu Abe lining up in row number 8. Paolo Mulia and Timo Evening in row 9, with Ilka Hapada and Fulvio Barazzini in row number 10. Row number 11, Kazuki Omishima and Davide Corps, and row 12, Stephen Michaels and Antoine Hegelin. Then to run through the rest of your field from P25 through 35, it's Antoine Hegelin, Dion Burgess, Robin Friskop, Jonas Lecurian, Miguel Martin, Michel Mancusi, Matthias Egger, Lasse Brun Hansen, Fabio De Carlo, Jan Nizolowski, Marcus Caton, and then finally Jason Lovatt. 25 drivers heading over to Road America, and they are separated in qualifying by just 1.5 seconds on the racetrack. We are getting ourselves ready for a great race here today at Road America with 1 minute left in practice, and these drivers now are on pretty much what will be their final lap of practice for the time being. Some of them are already on pit road doing that simulated race start. Martin Cronke is doing that right now. Jason Lovatt is doing that right now. But Jake, it's an uphill start. This is going to be interesting.
This is certainly going to be one of the best races on the calendar. I've been looking forward to this for the whole season. The uphill start, not going to be the easiest. Not the easiest start these drivers are going to have all season. But I reckon it's going to be the best and entertaining one we're going to have all season to watch.
And this is exactly what I'm talking about. These guys right now are literally slow on the exit of pit road. They will go pretty much one at a time just to allow themselves a little bit of room. In fact, Jason Lovatt there getting cut up by his teammate Timo Evening as he tried to come out of pit road. Andre Borcha doing exactly the same thing. And the spinning car there, that was Stephen Michaels. He's had a very difficult day. He had one of his laps invalidated in qualifying, and he's had a bit of a tough time in this warm-up session as well. You've got to be really careful when you drop that clutch. Checkered flag is out for the end of practice. And now we will head ourselves down to the starting grid for this, the 4th round of the championship. Who you got to win it, Jake?
I'm going to go for an outsider. I'm going to say Isaac Price. He's had a okay-ish start to the season, but I reckon 9th on quali. I reckon he can do this. I reckon he can come from the outside.
Personally, I am going to go, I think, with that number 27 car of Oli Picada. If he can get himself a good start, he might be on lower fuel. And let's not forget the way strategy here works today. Most drivers will be on a one-stop strategy, but expect a couple of people to roll the dice and try that two-stopper. A two-stopper is overall about 10 seconds slower over the course of a race. If you can make it work at the beginning, however, you really could see yourself ending up in iRacing victory lane. Once again, your top 5, Hugo Louise, Gregor Hutu, then Oli Picada, Alexei Yusiakola, and Martin Cronke as drivers get set to go racing here today at Elkhart Lake for a total of 47 laps. Can Hugo Louise extend that championship charge? Can Gregor Hutu get himself back to iRacing victory lane? Can Glacier Racing win 2 in a row? What can Picada do? What can Yakola do? But also, keep an eye out on Martin Cronke. The light about to go on top of the iRacing.com gantry. The 4th round of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series starts right now, and it's a very good start there by Hugo Louise. A very slow start though by Oli Picada, and Hutu immediately trying to go on the offensive, but he's not going to be close enough down into turn number 1. Battle between the 2 Glacier Racing drivers around the outside will go. Alexei Yusiakola, he'll keep that 3rd position. Picada 4th. Martin Cronke in the 5th position. Borcha in 6th. But Isaac Price, a great start by him. He passes Alex Simpson down on the outside of turn number 2. and he's able to make that job stick. And Jake Sturgis right now is going side by side, and Martin Patila in the battle for position. But Oli Picard has lost out to Martin Conke in the early going. He's going to try and get that P4 back as they come down into turn number 5. Picard on the inside, Conke on the outside, and it looks like Oli Picard is just going to have that inside line into turn number 6, and he will get that job complete on the racetrack. However, Hugo Luis is leading right now, and he's already scampering away, Scott, by about 8 tenths of a second over Gregor Hutu. Yakoda 3rd, Oli Picard a near miss there, he's in 4th, and Cronke rounds out your top 5.
And the crucial thing was that off that start, I did notice the 2 Glacier cars actually boxed in Cronke. It was a fantastic start for the second of the Ferrari Motorsport cars on the grid, but both Yusuke Kola and Picard managed to stop him from making any progress. And even though we saw that Cronke did manage to get a run at Picard, was that the young Finn managed to keep himself in front. But what a start again from Hugo Luis, exactly what he needed, and not a bad start from Hutu either. Kept his second place, but now's the crucial part of these first couple of laps, as we said. Let's see how they settle down now, see what kind of pace Hugo Luis runs. But already it looks as though Hugo's not hanging around. He's got his foot down already. He wants to burn out as much of a gap as he can. He's opening laps to secure a potential race victory as they come across the stripe for the first time.
Lap number 1 is in the books here at Elkhart Lake, and the gap between Luis and Hutu, well, that is almost 1 second on the racetrack. In fact, it's 9 tenths, exactly the same gap between P1 and P2 as it is to P2 and P3, as Yakola is trying to stay within that draft of Gregor Hutu. The draft is going to be so important in this race. We'll talk about that in just a couple of moments' time. Drivers who are at the rear of the field, Michel Mancusi right now in that number 42 car is at the rear of the field, scored in the 34th position on the racetrack. We believe that pretty much everyone has been able to get through the first couple of laps okay, but Michel Mancusi is scored right now 30 seconds behind your race leader, Hugo Luis. Right now, our most interesting battle on the racetrack, I'm going to have to say, Scott, is that one between Yakola, Picard and Conke, because they have not really been able to pull any distance at all from each other. And you see those 2 guys ahead of them, they're scampering on into the distance.
Yeah, the catalyst here possibly could be Yusuke Kola. We're not saying that he hasn't got enough pace, but of course he seems to be just settling down a little bit steadier than the likes of Picala and Cronke. And it looks like those 2 more readily, they want to get on with this race as soon as they can. Of course, this could be crucial, because if they don't get a move on with it, it could mean they could fall into the clutch to drivers like Andre Butcher, like of course Isaac Price and Alex Simpson, who are all up there. And Isaac Price actually starts to drop Alex Simpson pretty quickly already. He's got a nice little gap of roughly about a second or so as they head down towards kind of the corner, as the rest of the top 10 and the rest of the pack behind start to filter through. All trouble-free so far. A little bit of a check-up as Fulvio Barattini was just behind Kazuki Umeshima, but apart from that, everyone's looking pretty clean. I don't want to tempt fate, but it's also very fast and frantic in the back of the field, around the 23rd position between several cars. They're all fighting for position, but so far, pretty clean, no incidents whatsoever. Yeah,
Michel Mancusi, he actually started this race on pit road, and he had an issue as he came from turn 1, actually, running at the rear of the field. He is out of the race, so he's running all by himself, had an incident in turn 1, and he is out of the race, but it is Hugo Luis still leading from Gregor Hutu, Alexei Yusiakola in 3rd, 4th place Oli Picard, 5th place Martin Conte, 6th is Andre Borcher, 7th is Isaac Price, 8th is Alex Simpson, 9th is Mo Garfilo. Running at your top 10 right now is Yorni Tamala, and right now those first couple of laps are in the book, Jake. They've finally been able to get some temperature into those tyres. Now it's all going to be a case of what fuel loads are these guys on, and who can make the moves early to get themselves from track position. Jake Sturgis is looking very close to the rear right now of Yorni Tamara in that battle for P10.
Yeah, Jake Sturgis there getting a great start off there. Also Isaac Price, he made a brilliant start there, leapfrogging 2 cars. Simpson as well making a good start. Race is starting to settle down. They're going to spread out now. We're going to see the strategies come into place. Will we have any 2-stoppers this year? I don't think there was any last season we saw. It all come down to the strategy.
Well, yeah, of course, Max DeLorco last year famously went on that alternate strategy. He passed so many cars in this event. It does look as though right now, potentially we are going to see a bit of a repeat of what we saw at Suzuka, Scott, because let's not forget, it was Luis and Hutu who pitted earlier than the 2 Glacier Racing drivers, and all of that time, those 2 drivers on pit road, it allowed the Glacier Racing guys to eke out a huge advantage. Now, I talked to some people, a full fuel tank of fuel is 3 seconds a lap slower than when you're getting towards the end of a fuel cycle, and that means that 5 laps of fuel longer, and really you could lose yourself about 8 seconds on the racetrack. You've got to be bold if you do this one stopper. You've got to fill that tank up and go as long as you can. If you go in the middle, you're really not going to get the job done at all.
Yeah, this does seem to be with the polar opposite to what we had at Suzuka, where it's better if you do the undercut rather than trying to run longer. Because the long straights and the high speeds, it works much more in your favour. And when you've also got a tailwind down this back straight down towards turn 5, that's going to be also even crucial as well, because of course you're going to lose time on the headwind when you go the other way down the pit straight. So these guys are going to have to restart to use up more fuel, but of course effectively if you're going to run hard in a headwind, it's going to use more fuel anyway, so effectively these guys are going to have to figure out maybe a bit of a clever strategy to maybe use the wind to their advantage in some context. But as you said, of course, with this circuit, of course, it's again, if you're going to go run on a two-stop strategy, the overtakes are going to have to come thick and fast. And thankfully, with a circuit that's fairly wider than Suzuka, but not massive like somewhere like Sebring, on corners like down towards Canada Corner, if you can get the run down areas of the circuit where you can get the tailwind, that can be crucial to make passes that you need to make this two-stop strategy work.
Timo even had an issue on lap number 4 down into turn number 1, and he had a big issue which put him well down the field. But right now you've got your top 2 drivers pulling out an advantage right now over this battle between Alexei Yusiakola, Olli Picard. They running 3rd and 4th position. Martin Konke has slipped from the rear of them a little bit, and then Konke really has been able to clear his teammate Andre Bortz. The gap between those 2 drivers is about 2 seconds on the racetrack right now. The field is getting a little bit more spread out. Yormi Tamala looks down to the inside, not quite close enough there to Mo Garfilo in the battle for the 9th position on the racetrack. Turn 1 is incredibly difficult today because of the fact that he gets a crosswind right in the centre of the corner, and that really has hurt a couple of drivers already. Of course, we talked about Michel Mancusi being out of the race. It also affected Timo Evenham, and as the fuel load goes down, I do expect to see some drivers at some point in this race potentially being caught out by that first turn. However, I tell you what, some fascinating battles going on towards the rear of this top 10 and beyond, because you've got Mo Garfilo and Yormi Tamala battling in 9th and 10th, but then you've got Jake Sturgis, Jeremy Bootsloop and Yuhu Abe still there in the picture, Scott, as they are battling to get themselves inside of the top 10, and they're very closely matched.
Yeah, and it's all crucial points going forward. As always, Mo Garfilo drops himself a little bit too deep, and that's allowed Yormi Tamala to go around the outside, and Jake Sturgis could also get himself involved in this fight as well, as they head now through Carousel up towards the Kink and underneath the Hawk Bridge. And here comes, of course, possibly it's Jake Sturgis. He did make a bit of a look there at Mo Garfilo, but he might get a run. And that's what we talked about, the run through the Kink to put himself alongside and get into that position down towards Canada Corner. He's going to get the move done. He's harder under brakes. Here he comes down the inside. Jake Sturgis with a better exit. He gets a little bit sideways on the exit of that Canada Corner, though Yormi Tamala now does have Mo Garfilo, I should say, sorry, has the better exit, keeps himself in front. But now with the headwind, this is now bringing also Jeremy Bootsloop and Yuhu Abe into the picture. This is a fantastic battle going on for 10th position. The final points playing place, and 3 cars line astern down the pit straight. Fantastic stuff.
And I tell you what, it was very good race on the outside of Canada Corner there by Mo Garfilo. We saw in our qualifying show how Hugo Ruiz got himself all 4 wheels onto that curb, and then it was a big issue. Jeremy Bootsloop, however, in the number 19 car, he looks as though he has fallen back a couple of positions as he's allowed Yuhu Abe to go past. I think he got boxed in actually a little bit there by Jake Sturgis, and that allowed Yuhu Abe to go down to the inside into turn number 1, and he made that pass happen. Yuhu Abe now is up into P12 on the racetrack, and a good race once again by that rookie Yuhu Abe in the number 30 car, quickly becoming one of the most popular drivers in the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. Things are not settling down here at all, and we've got 2 wider action going towards the rear of the field, and that is between Antoine Hegelin and Ilka Hapada right now. It looks like Hegelin's going to get the job done, but no, they don't. And then Ilka Hapada almost into a spin there. That allows Stephen Michaels to try and go around the outside. He'll be in the inside as they come down into the hurry down. Stephen Michaels side by side now with that is Ilka Hapada, and on the outside, will Michaels get the job done? The answer's going to be yes, he can. What a move there, Jake, on the outside of the hurry downs, and that was a great pass by Stephen Michaels, bouncing back after a horrible finish 2 weeks ago at Suzuka.
Michael's coming on strong. He had a bad qualifying session though, as we mentioned earlier on. He didn't get very far, he only got 1 lap in, but the racing is incredible at the back here so far. I'm also watching Robert Friskos. He's trying to make something work there. They were 3 wide a minute ago coming through the carousel, or just before. This race, it's not settling down. It's really starting to hot up there.
And of course, Antoine Hegelin's had a great lap. He's been able to get himself past Paul Ilbrink as well. Get this, he started this lap in P21. He finishes it not just inside the top 20, but now up into the 19th position on the racetrack. A great lap there by, as I say, Antoine Hegelin in that number 33 car. Ilka Hapada has had a bad lap. He falls down into P22. Ilbrink looks down to the inside there. of Antoine Hegling was not able to get the job done that time by, however, on the racetrack. Still very close racing as Jake Sturgis is now past Mogar Philo. Is Philo going to come back into turn number 5? He's not going to be quite close enough, but Jake Sturgis is now scored inside the top 10. And Scott, that's a good start there by Jake Sturgis. Of course, we know how fast those Annex cars are traditionally in a straight line, and he got that one done with brute horsepower just as they came past the stripe into turn number 1.
Yeah, but the crucial thing was that Jake almost lost it because he got a very sideways on the exit of turn 3, and that almost gave Mogar Philo the chance to come back at him through the little kink underneath the Sargento bridge down towards turn 5. And now it seems though Jake's up to speed and he's actually starting to pull away now from Juha Arbe's. Now, if it looks to me, we've also Juha Arbe, Nelson and Mogar Philo in there, so there's a bit of a gap. And Arbe's now falling into the clutches of Jeremy Boutelic, Martin Piatella and Christian Laurent. So he's not exactly running the same pace he was a couple of laps ago, so maybe just got shaken up a little bit by the fact that those 3 cars were all close together. But he's going to have to try and shake himself off now and push a little bit harder to keep up with Mogar, because it seems that the 3 of those guys that are battling, Jake's got them at ultimate pace, and already he's going up the road to try and chase after Yoni Tomala in number 21 machine as they head on to lap number 8 of this 47 lap event.
Out front, however, it is Hugo Louise now with a 1.8 second advantage over Gregor Hutu in the number 1 team Redline car. Third place is still Alexei Yusiakoda. Fourth place is still Oli Picala. And then Martin Cronke rounds out your top 5. Now, I want to get your thoughts on this, because last time by, as we had a look at the lap count, it was a 1 minute 35.8 for Hugo Louise, a 1 minute 35.8 for Gregor Hutu, just 100th of a second separating those 2 drivers. Then a 135.6 for Yakola, and a 135.7 for Oli Picala. It does look as though that those 2 Glacier Racing drivers, Scott, are now closing back to the rear of that 3-time champion, the number 1 driver of Gregor Hutu.
And it's not as if they've got loads. I mean, Hutu has more clear air than these 2 do have. I mean, effectively, it just seems to be that both UC and both UC Yakola and Picala seems to have made better use of it, and they are starting to close in. They do seem to have a slightly bit more ultimate pace than Gregor Hutu does. But that said, Hutu's only about a 10th off the pace of these guys behind, so he is still pushing on hard. And also, don't discount Martin Cronke 5th place. His last lap time around was a 135.8, so the same lap time on the pace as Hugo Luis and Gregor Hutu. But if he doesn't step it up, he might possibly start to drop back from these 2. But it certainly shows that the pace they showed in Suzuka wasn't any fluke at all, and that both these guys are ultimately talented. They're super quick, and that Alexei Yusiakola's win was perfectly justified, and it's being justified right now with his pace. He's keeping up with the leaders ahead of Cronke and his teammate. This is awesome stuff. Hopefully, if he can push on, the pit stops may shape things out in his favour, depending on how this race plays out.
Indeed it is, and this is going to be a really pivotal stage of the race. We talk about strategy so much in the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series, and I think this is one that really could come into the books. And of course, let's not forget, if Hutu starts holding up Yakola and Picala, that is going to make it a dream come true for Hugo Louise and the number 3 car, because I've got the feeling right now that Louise is just a tiny bit lighter on fuel. We saw this at Interlagos, we saw it at Spa, we saw it at Suzuka as well. 2 laps can be a huge difference maker, and you can be anywhere up to 2 seconds a lap slower at this racetrack if you've got a half tank of fuel compared to a low tank of fuel. So if these 3 drivers start battling on the racetrack, Scott, really can make life easy for Hugo Louise, and it could almost be a dream come true for him, because I don't think that he expected to be leading this early in the going.
Absolutely, and also don't forget Martin Cronke also, because depending on his pace as well, if he's running a similar strategy, he might be running slightly heavier, which is the reason why he's in 5th place, but he is running on the same pace as both Hugo and Gregor in 1st and 2nd, as we said, so there could be a chance effectively. We said that this circuit is the polar opposite to Suzuka. It works better if you get the undercut rather than trying to run longer because of the heavier fuel loads, which is and also because of the fact you've got the long straights. But Hugo definitely has to make the most of this now, so he's really pushing forward to try and make this work. So this should be hopefully a great race for both of the 3 ID guys in the top 5. But we'll have to see if Cronke can take advantage of this also and just keep that gap not too far from both the Glacier Racing guys. He could potentially get himself into, potentially, if it works for him, a podium place, but provided it all depends also on how his strategy works and the fuel loads that both the Glacier guys are running as a comparison.
Last time by, Hugo Louise did himself a 135.5, Gregor Hutu a 135.6, and Alexei Yusiakoda a 135.3 for him, and a 135.4 for Oli Picala. So right now, Hutu is the slowest of those top 4 drivers. Martin Cronke is still there in kind of touching distance, but he is about 1.5 seconds back for Yakoda. However, he does have the draft, and he really is closing up to the rear of Gregor Hutu. It's going to be fascinating to see what will happen between those couple of drivers in the next few laps. as they're coming underneath the Corvette bridge. This is that critical section right now for Yakoda on the racetrack, Jake. Through turn 6, 7, 8, the hurry down section of the racetrack. If Yakoda can be close here and get that momentum through the carousel, all the way through the kink, down into Canada corner, that could be the game changer.
That's definitely one of the best passing spots here. You get the run on him out of carousel, you hold that draft down through the kink, you can make that move up the inside into Canada corner. That's the best overtaking place at this track. We also see Ollie Picana though, he's dropping back, he's trying to hold that draft with his teammate Jacola, but he can't stand away from Hugo Lloris. His gap, he's pulling it every lap, he's pulling another.
Got a car off the
10th
racetrack
or
as
so.
well, sorry. Just need to interrupt you there. There's a car off the racetrack, and that is Lassie Brun Hansen, who's just pulled off at the side on the racetrack on the exit of Canada corner. I'm not sure if he's just allowing cars to go past him, or whether the fact that he's actually just had some form of technical difficulty, but he is parked at the side of the racetrack right now, and Lassie Brun Hansen potentially is going to be classified as out of the race. And he's going to get moving, he's going to try and get his car moving, but this is the first. I've not actually seen a car pulled off at this side of the racetrack. It's going to be very difficult for him to get back on, because he's going to have to allow all of these cars now to go past, because if he pulls out into a racing groove, it could be a catastrophic incident. And he's got a chance right now. Indeed, Lassie Hansen's going to pull his car back onto the racetrack. Kazuki Omishima is going to come up behind him, but it looks as though that Lassie Hansen has finally been able to get himself back going, and he's now going to allow Omishima to go around him on Bill Mitchell Ben. And that was a very close call there, because you've got to be careful when you build up speed, especially if you're slow, through turn number 13 on the racetrack. Now, that battle between Yakola and Hutu, it carries on the racetrack, but it did seem to be that last time by, Yakola didn't get the momentum he needed through the hurry down section of the racetrack. This time, a little bit better, but still not close enough. And this is what that dirty air and that crosswind and everything else is doing right now, Scott. It's making life difficult for Yakoda, because his lap times have fallen off by about 0.2 of a second a lap ever since he's got into that dirty air of Gregor Hutu, and it's really difficult. I talked to some drivers before the race to hold that car for the hurry down section on the racetrack and also for the kink, and the groove really is only about half a car wide for that section of the racetrack anyway, and here you've got to be picture perfect every single lap, a little bit like turn 1 at Sebring.
Yeah, and the thing also is that I noticed that it's actually counterintuitive to what I thought it was. Is that actually, if you're on the pit strip where there is a headwind, it's actually working better for the car behind. It seems to be because it's a much better hole he's punching through the air. In fact, here comes UC closing in. He won't be close enough to make a pass, but he's going to get incredibly close indeed down towards turn 1. And this will give him the chance he needs to get that run down out of turn 3 through the kink and that down towards turn 5. Now, I'm seeing something with that. I see that Greg is possibly maybe having one or two slight little technical issues. I don't know if that's correct, but effectively he is causing one or two problems, I think, possibly, but he's still holding on for second place at the moment, as here comes Jacola closing in. He might have a little dance to the outside to force Gregor to look in his mirrors. Can't get it done this time into turn 5, but certainly he's going to have to be careful around Gregor, because it doesn't seem as though that he's looking all that stable, shall we say, if you know what I mean, Will.
Indeed he isn't, and at the same time what they are doing is they are starting to reel in Hugo Lloris just a little bit. That last time by, Hutu was 2 times per second faster than Hugo Lloris, and this actually takes me back now to the second stint at Suzuka. Yes, you can move some of the drivers around a little bit, but now it's Hutu catching up Louise, Yakoda catching up Hutu. Oli Picard is the driver who's lost out the most here, because he's now started to fall from the rear of these drivers, and he's actually got Martin Cronke in the 5th position, very close to the rear of him. Yakoda not going to be close enough to make the move down into Canada corner this time by, so he remains in that 3rd position on the racetrack. But Cronke having a good running right now, Jake, and he's starting to reel in Oli Picard in that number 27 car. Last time by, half a second faster than that number 27 Glacier Racing car.
Now he's starting to burn some fuel off. He is definitely starting to look a lot faster. He's got that heat in the tyres now. He's also in that draft of Picana. But as you say, Picana is the one that's lost out big time, as his teammate Jacola has managed to catch up with Hutu and he's in his draft. Them two are just going to battle away. Picana and Cronke, this will be interesting to see what happens. Will Cronke go round him? We'll see.
Tell you what though, Yakola is as close as he's ever been in that run out of turn number 2. He was a little bit loose in exit, but here he comes. This could be interesting. Will Yakola try and pull it down the inside into turn number 5? He's going to look to the left. Yakola down to the inside. He's going to get that job done on Gregor Hutu, and with a little bit of room to spare, will Hutu try and get the cut under? No, he won't. Alexei UC Yakola up into P2 on the racetrack. Gregor Hutu now relegated down into that 3rd position. And I have to say that Hutu kind of made it a little bit easy there for Yakoda. As soon as they went side by side, Yakoda had the racing line. Hutu just got out the gas a little bit, allowed that Glacier Racing driver of Yakoda to go past. But now it is Louise leading from Alexei Yakoda, and I tell you what, Scott, it's going to be a fascinating couple of laps to see whether Yakoda can reel in that one-time WCS champion that is Hugo Louise in that 3ID Motorsports car.
Well, you know he's got some fantastic pace and clear air, and he's utilising it right now, of course. And Gregor Hutu may have just let him go a little bit because he knows he's possibly running a little bit longer. So he thought rather than fight it and try and make a bit and slow down both of them, of course, because the more they fight, the easier it is for both Hugo Louise to pull a gap away from them, and also for Oli Picard to close in. He thought probably as the smarter driver to think better of it, to let Alexei burn off his fuel and to try and create that gap. And while that might seem counterintuitive, of course, he doesn't want to let him get away too quickly, because it now means that Alexei now has got to focus on trying to push on and keep her and close in on Hugo Louise, because we know he's got some ultimate pace. He was quicker than both of these two in the earlier part of this stint, but it all comes down to effectively on what strategy they're both playing, what fuel loads they're on, and effectively how much of a gap he can pull during now and his first, possibly one and only pit stop for Alexei Yakoda. But Gregor's going to sit in third place, try and regulate that gap and make sure he doesn't fall too much back into the clutches of Oli Picard and the second 3ID car of Martin Kroenke.
Last time by Alexei Yakoda went purple. He set himself a 1:35.010 as Hugo Louise could only manage a 1:35.385. And of course, we've got to keep our eye out still on Picard with Hutu, but also Kroenke has fallen off the rear now of Picard. So the number 27 car can look forward rather than looking in his mirrors. That battle continues on the racetrack to run through your top 10. After 21 minutes of racing, it is Hugo Louise leading on lap number 14 of 47 here by 1.7 seconds over Alexei Yakoda. Gregor Hutu in third, Oli Picard in fourth, Martin Kroenke fifth, Andre Borch in the sixth position, Isaac Price in seventh, in eighth is Alex Simpson, ninth is Johnny Tamala, and then rounding out your top 10 is Jake Sturgis in the iNext racing car. Don't forget, for more information about the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series, head over to wcs.iRacing.com. For all the latest news, developments, driver interviews and biographies, go to wcs.iRacing.com. For the World Championship Grand Prix Series and also the Peak Antifreeze NASCAR Series powered by iRacing.com. And also, if you're a new member to iRacing, get yourself 50% off a 1 month, 3 month, 1 year or 2 year membership and join the massively multiplayer online racing service with over 45,000 members worldwide. That is iRacing.com. So head over to iRacing.com right now for more information, as we're now on lap number 15 and last time by a 1:35.1 for Hugo Louise and a 1:34.8 for Alexei Yakoda. Yakoda is flying, but this is also what I was talking about earlier on, Scott. Right now, Yakoda's the first driver into the 34s. In qualifying, that would have put him 35th on the grid. So that half tanks right now, and they're 1.5 seconds a lap slower than what they were doing in qualifying. This shows that you've got to go as long as possible, really, to get the advantage. This race could all come down to how much fuel these guys have. And also, we've got some information from some of our friends over at Glacier Racing saying that these guys are actually having to preserve not only their tyres today, but also their fuel a little bit to make sure they can get to the end of the race. Now, we all know at Road America, if you run out in that final corner, you're going to roll up the hill and roll right back down it again.
Yeah, that could be the major disadvantage, of course. As I said, fuel saving is going to be a pretty crucial thing, and there are ways that some drivers can actually save their fuel loads without using up to that, sacrificing a lot of pace. And it takes quite a special driver to be able to have that skill where they can keep up on the pace of the leaders, but not be running too hard on how much fuel you're using. And that can be things such as maybe coasting through some of the corners, using half throttle, and a big one also is if you're going to tow somebody in front. To be able to, of course, just run at half throttle, because of course it means once in the tow you gain extra speed by using the hole that's been utilised and the hole that's punched through the air by the car in front. Obviously everyone knows that, but of course if you're going at half throttle you can go at exactly the same pace as the car in front whilst using half the fuel that's being used by the car who's permitted to push through the air in front and punch that hole for you for the car behind. So these guys will use all the fuel saving tactics they can whilst at the same time keeping that pace up. And it does seem as though that the incentive that it seems to be that because Alexei's now starting to close in on Hugo Louise, that's been a bit of an incentive for Hugo to start to pick the pace up, because if we look at his last lap times, Hugo's last lap was a 1:35.1, so he hasn't even touched the 134s yet. Alexei Yusiakola's with a 34.9, Gregor Hutu's a 34.9 also, and Pacala's a 34.8. So it seems to me though that even though Hugo was quick in the early part of the stint, coming towards the latter part of it, it seems as though either he's used up his tyres a little too much, or he's having some difficulties keeping that car on pace, because these three are pulling each other along and they're getting closer. So we could once again, as we had in Suzuka, have a four-way scrap for the lead anytime soon.
And Oli Pacala actually went purple that last lap, and he set the fastest lap of the race so far, and he now is in draft range of Gregor Hutu. Hutu is falling off the rear a little bit of Alexei Yusiakola. We'll get their times at the line once again. One thing I want to also bear in mind as well is the straight line speed. Now, of course, Hugo Luis will have a little bit of a disadvantage not having any draft ahead of him, but he does himself a 134.6, so he sets the fastest lap of the race for the time being, 185 miles an hour down into turn 1. Yakola 186 miles an hour into turn 1, a 134.9. Gregor Hutu a 134.880 for him that last time, by 187 miles an hour for him. And then Oli Pacala also 187 miles an hour at 134.7. But what a way to respond there, Jake. By going purple, Hugo Luis has picked up the pace. That gap is back up to 1.5 seconds on the racetrack.
Yeah, I think Hugo saw the gap between him and Hutu a few laps ago, and he thought, I'm just going to save some fuel and save some tyres, think of the long run and the strategy for the rest of the race. But now he's seen that Jacola's up to second and gaining every step of the race. He's just going to put the throttle down again and start trying to reach that gap out again. He's definitely got the pace to do it. He said he doesn't like this track, but from showing what he's done so far, he's definitely the man to beat so far.
Ilka Hapali's been able to get himself past Paul Ilbrink, moving him inside the top 20 for the time being. Ilka Hapali, of course, in that Orion racing car, and he got that job done. Again, up the start-finish straight, he was on the inside down into turn 1. Now, as difficult as turn 1 has been in this race so far, Jake, if you're side by side, got the inside line into the corner, very difficult for the guy on the outside to keep any form of momentum.
Yeah, it definitely is hard for them as well. Around the outside, it's not the easiest thing to do. The inside line seems to have more grip. The wind, not really playing a big advantage. Well, it is playing a big advantage going into the turn as well, but you never know.
As Hugo Luis comes past the line that time by a 134.7 for him, but that time by a 134.2 for Alexei Yusiakola. Yakola responds by going purple himself that last time by. What a lap for Alexei Yusiakola. And this takes me back to the glory days of Grand Prix racing, Scott. One driver sets the fastest lap, the other one comes back, okay, now I'm going to go fast. And these guys, they have got to think about fuel, think about tyres, but it does seem to be they are playing a little bit of a tete-a-tete game with each other right now in that battle for the race lead. Luis and Yakola. And Yakola is showing why he is now a force to be reckoned with in the WCS for some stunning lap times, and he really is holding his own with some of the best in the history of the WCS.
It really is a classic game of punch and counterpunch between two top-line guys at the front, and Hugo Luis is doing everything he can, but he knows that as much as quick as lap times are, he still has to save fuel and his tyres. But even so, Alexei Yusiakola just absolutely getting the foot down, throwing caution to win and saying, nope, come here, Hugo, I've won my first race out at Suzuka, I'm going for 2 in a row, and you're not going to stand in MOA at any point. Neither, of course, I think is Oli Pacala on Gregor Hutu, because I think that Gregor's now has been steadily falling back. He's not actually been able to keep with Alexei because of the pace he's been running, of course, with some electric lap times. But at the same time, of course, we see that Pacala's in there, and also don't forget, Martin Kroenke's now is the 134s. His last lap time was a 134.582, and he's closing on this battle here. So potentially by the end of the race, we could be looking at a 5-car scrap for the lead in podium places here at Road America. We've had 3 great races already. We could be in for a cracker and making it 4 in a row this season.
Yeah, Martin Kroenke has got a good chance of getting himself into that picture, especially if they split the strategies with himself and Hugo Luis. And let's not forget, you've got Andre Borchet in that 3rd 3ID Motorsports car running right now in 6th. And then Yoni Tamala running in the 9th place right now in the 4th of the 3ID Motorsports cars. Now, some guys that are impressing me, Isaac Price and Alex Simpson. Price has been able to get himself past Alex Simpson up into P7 on the grid after he started in P9. But these two British drivers are holding their own solidly in the top 10 right now. And it's entertaining to see that these two drivers really are making good battles in the WCS. Both Price and Simpson running strongly in the top 10. But we've also got to keep our eye out on Yakola, because he now really is close to the rear of Hugo Luis.
Yeah, he really is. This is a huge gap he's brought down. He's got it down to less than a second. And it's the same situation that we have, of course, with both the Gregor Hutu and Oli Pacala. These two Glacier Racing guys really are putting the frights on both of these top-line guys. They're not letting them have it easy. They really are putting them under pressure. And I think it's almost like something where Hutu and Luis have been used to battling amongst each other. where effectively now they've got to battle against, effectively it's almost like a foreign body. They're not used to this. They're used to battling with effectively one against the other, and it's always been Luis and Hutu. Now you've got two extra contenders. It's almost like they've been rudely interrupted, so it's kind of like, you know, Alexi's now putting on the pressure, and I think he's closer than he's ever been, so he'll have a great chance. It all depends on the exit out this final corner. If he can stay there and use the tail headwind to his advantage to help him pull him along down the pit straight, he may even get a chance to do exactly what he did to Hutu down towards turn 5 on Luis. This could be a great chance here. Here he comes.
Yeah, and he's up to 183 miles an hour, 185 miles an hour. Will he try and do it into turn 1? You see Hugo already going defensively around the outside. Alexi Yusiakola, will he get the job done? Yes,
wow.
He will. What a pass on the outside of turn number 1 there by Alexi Yusiakola. And that is, I have to say, nomination for potentially pass of the year, because he went around the outside of that corner. And I was saying just a couple of moments ago that the guy on the outside line cannot really hold their own into that first corner. What a pass, Jake, there by Yakola in that number 26 car as he leads his second race in a row.
Yeah, brilliant pass there. While we're concentrating on them top two there, we also see Bacana go around Hutu as well. He'd done the same thing, but he went to the inside. This race is definitely looking better for the Glacier guys. Bacana, what can you say? His pace, it's incredible. His pace has just shot up through the last few laps. His gap, it was about a 2-second gap with Hutu and Jacola. It's now down to nothing. He's taken the lead. He is something to be reckoned with in the next few weeks in this series.
Indeed he is. Yakola has already started to pull out an advantage over Hugo Luis as well. It's 6/10 of a second on the racetrack. You saw the replay up on your screen of that pass for the race lead. Let us know your thoughts, of course, on Twitter. Use the hashtag iRacingWCS. You can also follow us at RaceSpotTV as well, or leave your comment in the YouTube page. What a pass there by Alexi Yusiakola, and it is moments like that what we live for in the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. At the same time, Oli Picardo was able to get past Gregor Hutu, and it was literally as if the Glacier Racing drivers, Scott, was like, okay, let's hit that overtake button, and it's almost as if they had DRS, push the pass, everything going on those cars, because they just got a huge head of steam. Okay, we seem to have lost Scott for just a moment's time, but we'll run through your top 10. It is Yakola now leading by 7/10 of a second over Hugo Luis. Oli Picala is in P3. Gregor Hutu in P4. Martin Cronke P5, but not out of the picture just yet. Andre Borcher in 6th. Isaac Price in 7th. Alex Simpson in 8th. Yoni Tamala in 9th. And Yuhu Abe now up into the top 10 as we are getting closer to half race distance. We only have 3 drivers out of the race so far. Michel Mancusi, in fact, we only got one driver out of the race because Lassie Brun Hansen and Miguel Martin are still racing, but they have scored a lap down in this event as Jordi Tamalo is just putting a lap there on Miguel Martin in the number 22 machine. But as it stands right now, it is now going to be a case of can Oli Picard close up to the rear of Hugo Luis. Last time by, the lap times were this. Alexi Yusiakola 134.7, Hugo Luis 135.7, Oli Picard 134.7, Gregor Hutu 135.2. Scott, I am wondering that potentially Hugo Luis had used too much early to get himself an advantage, and potentially he's had to save a little bit of gas now to get himself into contention and make sure he can get to the number he needs to still keep himself with a chance of getting back to the race lead later.
Yeah, I think he may just have in some cases now just to let Yusiakola go for a while, just see if he can look after his own interests with fuel and tyres as well. But he's got to be careful because, of course, Oli Picard is starting to drop Hugo Hutu and starting to close the gap in this time, and also it's working great for the other 3 ID car of Martin Cronk because he's now closing on Gregor Hutu for 4th position. But I mean, quickly going back to that pass, I mean, as I was going to say before I realised my mic wasn't completely plugged in, I mean, I've seen some passes in sim racing in my time, but genuinely that is one of the best moves I've ever seen anyone make on another driver. That was such gutsy stuff from Yusiakola around the outside at turn 1. That's not typically a passing place you'd make. Yes, you can pass on the inside, but to be as absurd as Yusiakola was to go around the outside of someone like Hugo Luis, I mean, he pulled off a move to get the lead at turn 1 Suzuka. We thought that was a great start, but that just outclassed everything. And as you said, I think effectively just hold off all bets on any more moves. I don't think we'll see anything unless it takes something pretty special to top that move. That I think we already could even crown that as move of the year already, only 4 races into the season. But yeah, fantastic stuff. And Hugo's now got some work to do. If he is saving fuel, he's going to have to be very careful because, of course, he has got Oli Picard bearing down, and of course Martin Cronk is coming alight. So 3ID really start to make the move in this race and have to make the decisions to what they're going to do going forwards.
And a shout out to some of the guys on YouTube who loved that manoeuvre. Yanni Sinkinen, Dujon Baldwin, Frank Levesque, Mark Warrington, and also the Iberia Racing Team, Bidley98 and Andy Daniels, all loving that pass there by Alexei Usiakoda. We are getting closer to half race distance, and now we're into that phase of the race where we got to think, well, what's going to happen with pit stops? Because we have seen in 2 of the events so far at Spa and Suzuka that when these guys come to pit road, it can make a huge difference in this race. Let's look outside of the top 10 right now, because you have Jake Sturgis running in the 11th position, Mo Garfilo in 12th, but Jeremy Bootaloop is right behind his teammate Mo Garfilo, battling for that 12th position, and Bootaloop's got a bit of a run right now on Mo Garfilo. Last time by, he was about the same speed, but Bootaloop, we've seen some great racing by him in this series so far, and Bootaloop is the king of the middle part of the race. When that fuel load goes down, Bootaloop starts flying.
Yeah, he really does. This is a guy who's really starting to capitalise on this point in the race where he's trying to make sure that he's trying to get up through the field, and he's definitely going to put himself again into contention to give himself a top 10 finish. But of course, he's just patiently sitting behind his teammate now at the moment, of course making sure that they run line astern between each other. But Jake Sturgis seems to have really turned the wick up, and actually I say that, but he was running pretty strong and up there in the top 10 and battling, but it does seem as though he's dropped off quite a bit in this part of the race going through the end of this first stint, and it's quite unusual because Jake's not really been running at the same pace that we've been used to seeing him, and he's just hovering at the edge of the top 10. He's about a second away from Yuhaib in front. In fact, it's less than that. It was about... In fact, it's increased by that. In fact,
I'm going to have to interrupt you. Martin Kroenke is out of the race, and it's just come up on my screen. Martin Kroenke down at the kink. He was running in P5, and what did I say at the start of this broadcast, Jake? That turn 5, especially if you're running in traffic, can be so difficult. He just got into the dirty air of Gregor Hutu, put 2 of his left tyres onto that grass, speared that car into the outside wall. Martin Kroenke is out of the race, and that is one of the biggest crashes I have seen in a long time. But Martin Kroenke is out of this event. Okay, replay is up on your screen for that for the time being, but Scott, big incident there for Martin Kroenke.
Yeah, I'm just having a look back at it on myself right now, and that is one hefty incident. It looks like they just lost it at the edge of the kink, clipped the inside wall, and yeah, that's really just crumpled the suspension on that machine, and that thing's going nowhere. But that's a real shame. Kroenke had some fantastic pace going forwards. He was in 5th place. He was up there closing in on Gregor Hutu, but just seemed to be that he was so fixated on pushing on to try and get that 4th position and move up through the field to get closer to help his teammate Hugo Luis. He just pushed a little bit too hard, and I think maybe even got caught in some dirty air in front, because it's amazing, even though you're so far back, the dirty air can have quite an effect even at quite a distance. So maybe in the case that he tried to turn in, took a little bit too much speed, and of course because of the dirty air, forced the car wide, put a wheel onto the grass, and that's what caused the incident. So it is a real shame, but Hugo's going to push on and try and at least represent the rest of the fortunes up there in the top 5 for 3IDs, try and get themselves some points. Of course, he can still lead the championship, but Kroenke may find himself dropping down the order, especially as Picard is still running in 3rd. So Picard could lead this afternoon, Will, in 2nd place in the championship if fortunes stay the same as they are.
Indeed so, and Picardo went purple that last time by, did it in 1 minute 34.067 as he comes past the stripe once again. He does himself a 1 minute 34.0 once again, a 134.1 that last time by for Hugo Luis, but now it's purple for Alexei Usiakoda in that number 26 car, a 133.789. Another incident that we had on the racetrack, this was between Jonas Nakurian and I believe it was David Korps, and this was a little bit reminiscent on the Barrichello incident at Hungary actually a number of years ago with Jonas Nakurian and David Korps, who were running up the front straightaway. And let's not forget, Scott, it's a very narrow front stretch here. Lap number 23 of the race, David Korps trying to go past Jonas Nakurian, and it did look as though there was a bit of a block there by Nakurian. David Korps almost went into that inside retaining wall and almost shot on the inside of pit road.
That's a very dangerous move, of course. We've seen, like I said, it's similar to Barrichello and Schumacher, and it's a bit of a dodgy move. I think the stewards will want to have a word with both of them to see exactly whose version of events they're going to believe. But it's all about the closeness of racing in that situation. As I think we may possibly heard of some kind of incident that's happened, and I'm not sure what's happened on the racetrack. Maybe you can fill us in, Will?
Yep. We'll get word of that in just 1 moment's time. So there are still incidents going on all the way around the racetracks, and our timely streams will update in just 1 moment's time. But I say that incident in the Korean, I'm sure Shannon Whitmore and all those guys over on the iRacing Stewards office might have a very close look at that replay, and potentially some penalty points may be given to Jonathan Korean for that one. However, we are now past half race distance on lap number 26, and like last time by, it was a 134.3 for Alexei Yakoda. And one of the things that's really intriguing me in this race is that drivers will do a fast lap. And, I mean, we did a 133.7 for Yakoda. The next lap, he's going half a second slower. And I'm struggling to understand that. Is that the fuel saving coming in? Or is that actually just the fact that these tyres take so much pounding in one lap that they almost have to cool them down again? Because let's not forget, in qualifying, Scott, we saw these guys just do one lap for the most part. When normally we'll see them do 3 laps and their fastest lap is the 3rd lap. Whereas here, it was one and done, especially for like Yakoda, and he only did 1 lap at all in qualifying.
Well, the one thing that comes to mind is actually something that Ayrton Senna used to do, which effectively when he was doing qualifying runs, he would go on a blisteringly fast lap. Then his next lap, he would just pull back, cool down for a bit after a blisteringly fast lap he did. Just cool down, make sure everything, the tyres, the brakes, everything, the cars just settle down again, just to compose himself once more, just to refocus after such a fast lap he did, and then just went straight back on it. And he was constantly went to kind of fast lap, slow lap, fast lap, slow lap. And this could be, as you said, you could be right, this could be fuel saving tactics in place, could be, as I said, a tactic to help the tyres last a bit longer by backing off in a few corners. It could just be, again, just make sure they're not stretch themselves too far, because you can get carried away if you're chasing a car in front or trying to build up a lead. You can get carried away with pushing too hard, with feeling, okay, I've got about as much of a gap. Whereas if you can just kind of utilise it and keep it steady at about 1.5 seconds and keep the cars behind at bay just about enough, do enough to make sure that they're still there, not challenging too much without really overstretching yourself, you can actually gain an advantage on the cars behind, because they're the ones that have to push harder to keep up with you. So if you're the one controlling the pace and keeping yourself steady, you could be in the prime seat there, and you're actually doing a very smart thing to keep your car in better condition compared to the others around you.
We talked a little bit earlier on about Mo Garfilo battling with Jeremy Bootloop. In fact, Bootloop now has lost a position to Marty Patila. However, Patila is beginning to put a little bit of pressure on that number 10 car of Mo Garfilo in the battle for the 11th, 12th and 13th positions on the racetrack. Out front, however, Oli Picard a 133.6 that last time by, and a 133.555 for Alexei Yakoda. No references at all to any brand product at all in the history of the world. But Yakoda, of course, a 133.555 for him. And that gap is about 1.6 seconds on the racetrack between Yakoda and Louise. Louise to Picard is about 7 tenths of a second. I tell you what though, I don't see racing that close in WCS right now. And it will all come down, I think, not to when these guys pit, but how aggressive they are coming onto pit road. But Picard is now close to the rear of Hugo Louise, and we have seen just how fast these Glacier Racing cars can be in a straight line. Top speed we've seen by them has been 185 miles an hour in this race as they come out of corner number 14 once again. Let's see what Oli Picard can do. I think he's just a little bit too far back right now to really make a move as they come underneath the Caterpillar Bridge, come down to complete lap number 27, and up to 185, 6, 7, 8 miles an hour there for Oli Picard. A 133.669 for him. Hugo Louise 2 tenths of a second slower, but Picard potentially wants to make this a repeat of what we saw 2 weeks ago at Suzuka.
Yeah, he really does, and Picard effectively trying to line himself up down the back straight underneath the Sargento Bridge and towards that turn 5 corner once again, that corner that's not really been causing as many problems as we thought it might have done with these rules where you cannot put all 4 wheels across the curb, and beyond that, of course. These guys have been very sensible, not too many penalties for that at all, so these guys effectively know their limits and they are sticking to them, but Picard seeming very strong through that section and keeping close to the back of Hugo Louise, not letting that dirty air affect him too much as they come through the hurry downs, but there is that crosswind that's been there all race long so far. But here comes the crucial bit, round this long right-hander, all the stress that's being put on the left-hand side tyres as they head through the carousel, and it's the exit through here and through the kink. Let's see if there's any effect of dirty air through this fast right-hander. Doesn't seem to be too much, as Picard keeps close to the rear end of Hugo Louise. It's this run off of Canada corner back onto the pit straight and down into the headwind that might be crucial. But of course, as we said, I thought it was the other way around, but it's actually the headwind's actually a more benefit down the pit straight, because if you're on the toe, it's a much bigger hole that's being punched in the air, which means that you get a much better advantage in the slipstream. So let's see what Picard can do here, if he can close up at all down this pit straight as they go towards turn 5 again on this next lap.
So, lap number 28 is in the books for these drivers. To run through your top 10, it is Yakoda from Louise, from Picard, from Hutu, from Borcha, from Price, from Simpson, from Yoli Tamara, Yuhu Abe and Jake Sturgis. They are your top 10 drivers classified out of the race. Just a couple of them. Michel Mancusi was out on lap number 2, a single car incident. He actually started this race from pit road, then had a moment down in turn number 1, speared himself into the inside retaining wheel. He is out of the race. And Martin Conke, you saw that earlier on in this race, he had a crash down at the kink, and that put him 33rd position, and that is going to be hugely disappointing for him, Jay, considering he came into this event second place in the championship. He's not going to leave this event second place in the championship after that finish.
Yeah, definitely. He was having a good run in the championship so far, but that wreck, it was just something that happens. It's one of them. It's not going to be his day, is it? But just to go off subject here, Will, we have got our first pit stops. Yuhu Abe coming in. He's now coming out of the pits.
So, Yuhu Abe in that number 30 car is going to be your first pitter at the conclusion of lap number 28 in this event. That number 30 car, and that could be a huge disadvantage for him because he was really beginning to build up some positions, running himself solidly inside the top 10. But the way that this mid-pack has been here today, maybe if you pit 2-3 laps earlier, that could drop him all the way back outside of the top 15 if some other drivers don't come onto pit road in the next couple of laps time. Yakola does stay out that last time by. Louise stays out, Picardo stays out, and of course Hutu will stay out as well. So your top 4 drivers not committing yet to pit road as we now work ourselves onto lap number 30 in this event. Another car coming out of pit road, that's Kazuki Omishima, and pit road exit itself is so difficult here. Poor Omishima is just thinking, I just want to keep out of the way. I do not want to do Mercurium out into Lagos and to get involved in another driver's race. But the way pit exit is here, Jake, is, you know, straight onto the racing groove, the inside of turn number 1. And yes, there is a blend line per se, but you've got to be very, very careful when you come back onto the racetrack.
Yeah, there is a blend line, but no driver really pays attention to that because it runs out straight away. The little over run that they have there is incredible. There's no one that's going to be able to stay there that long. You have to pull out and you have to allow the quicker drivers that are still on the track their room. You have to, in theory, slow up and let them go, which you don't normally see on a racetrack, but it's the safest way to not ruin both of your drivers' races.
And of course, the way that the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series works, in complete comparison to the rest of the iRacing service, blue flag rules are in effect, so drivers will have to yield for blue flags, and also there are caution lights as they come out of pit road. They will know if there is a car coming up behind them. That battle for P2 continues with Oli Picardo and Hugo Luis. This is about as close as Oli Picardo has been at this entire race. Of course, this is a battle for the second position right now on the racetrack between Hugo Luis in that number 3 red line car as they come onto pit road. Luis is on pit road, as is Alexei Usiakola, so your leader and P2 driver are both on pit road, and it looks as though that Hutu will stay out, Picardo stays out, Picardo's going to lead this lap, Miguel Martin is also on pit road, but Yakola 45 miles an hour, and Hugo Luis is also on pit road. Andre Borcha, Isaac Price is on pit road right now, as is Alex Simpson. Yorni Tamala is going to be a very busy journey on pit road right now, but we've got to keep our eye out on that battle between Yakola and Luis. Luis has the advantage of having the first pit stall. It means he doesn't need to think about that pit limiter on the exit of pit road. 4 fresh tyres. He'll top up with race gas as well. Yakola will beat him out of pit road. That is almost to be expected. But the issue is going to be, will be cars in between, and the answer is going to be yes, there will be one car actually, and that is Ilka Hapala, who splits Hugo Luis and Alexei Yakola. I do have to say though, Scott, does seem to be Yakola gained something on that entrance into pit road.
Well, also, what was quite intriguing is that Hugo Luis actually had to quickly dart around Yakola because he didn't anticipate he'd stop so quickly, so he almost effectively ran into the back of him. Going towards his pit stall, but yeah, Hugo actually seems to, though he's filled up a little bit with more fuel, and he seems to be on that pit stand a little bit longer. But there were a couple of cars coming down pit road, so maybe he was just anticipating them coming through. But now he's got Ilka Hapala between him and Alexei Usiakola. The gap has actually stretched out, and it's exactly what we saw back at Suzuka with these pit stops. Seems to be that Glacier Racing seem to have something a little bit under their sleeve.
So Picardo is on pit road, so he comes in this time by. Will the 3-time champion Hutu come in? Yes, he will as well. And that was a very, very bold entrance onto pit road there for Gregor Hutu. We'll get the in-laps in just 1 moment's time, but 45 miles an hour for them. To give you an update, by the way, Yakola did a 144.8 for his pit in lap. It was a 144.5 in lap there for Hugo Luis. Oli Picardo a 144.450 and Gregor Hutu a 144.1. This is why Hutu is a 3-time champion, Jake, because he just gained 4 tenths of a second in one swift manoeuvre coming onto pit road, but they're both into their box.
Hutu there, definitely leaving it, yes, Will, to the end until he hits that pit limiter and the brakes. He makes a brilliant stop there. Look at that gap now between Bacala on the pit exit.
But I tell you what, they've both come out. Picardo's in the race lead there. He's got himself past iWCGPS, Hutu in third. It's Glacier Racing 1-2. But the other way around is young Oli Picardo in the number 27 car, who now leads this race. It's the number 26 machine of iWCGPS in second. Hutu is third. And then you've got to go all the way back about 4 seconds on the racetrack to find Hugo Luis. Luis has been dumped out the podium position. Hutu, contact right there with Ilka Hapana under braking down into turn number 5. Hapana, of course, he was on lighter fuel. He's allowed to make the pass there on Hutu. But as they came down into the corner, I have to say there, that was a mistake by Gregor Hutu. He almost spun that car into the entry of the corner, made contact with Ilka Hapana, and I tell you what, I think that's hurt him quite dramatically because he's fallen back.
Yeah, he really has, but that was a fantastic sequence of pit stops, and that just shows you how determined Gregor Hutu was to try and keep his position. That 44.1 in lap really helped him gain the time that he lost, but stunningly also it means, of course, we said, Oli Picardo is now in the lead. We said he's so determined. I said at in the pre-show, talking about it in qualifying, he's got so much confidence in his abilities and himself. Apart, as we said, iWCGPS was only expected to be in the top 10 of these standings, whereas Oli Picardo wants to be up in the top 5 and beyond with a chance at the championship next year. He's got so much belief in his abilities as finally Ilka Hapana darts into pit lane. Of course, now this means, of course, with all that hold up, we've got 2 awesome battles. It's an inter-team battle between Glacier Racing and the classic battle, Hutu and Luis for 3rd position. This could go down to the wire. We're coming towards with 14 laps left to go. They're all on 1 stops. This could be an awesome battle to the end of the race, Will. I'm so excited. This could be absolutely incredible. We could be seeing potentially, if Hutu and Luis don't hold each other up and can sail onto the back of these two, which might be difficult as the Glacier guys have been on pace all day long, it could be a case we could once again have a 4-car scrap. But if not, it's going to be Glacier Racing duking it out. We could have a Mercedes-style battle that we had in the real F1 in Bahrain all over again, but here at Road America.
But it does seem to be that Hutu has some big issues. That last time by, after that contact with Ilka Hapana, his outlap was very, very slow. We have got to keep an eye out on Gregor Hutu, because I tell you what, Hugo Luis has caught up to the rear of him, and he's now only about 6 tenths of a second further back. Oli Picardo and iWCGPS have now got a 3-second advantage, and that was all due to that incident down in turn number 5 between Gregor Hutu and Ilka Hapana. Hapana, by the way, has now made his pit stop, so he's got 4 fresh tyres and he's topped up with race gas as well. He is good to go to the end of this race. But you've got to wonder, Jake, what did that contact there do for Gregor Hutu? And more importantly, was that Hutu's fault or was that Hapana's fault? Because Hapana broke very late into the corner, but at the same time, Hutu did lock up under braking.
Yeah, Hutu there, I think, did make the mistake. He didn't leave enough room, but if he'd have gone any wider, he would have maybe got that penalty where you're not allowed to run wide. But Hutu definitely, I think, making that mistake. It was a alright move for him to make, but end of the day, you've got to give the room for him.
Jeremy Bootsloop is on pit road, as is Martin Sheila, so we're completing our sequence of pit stops as Paul Ilbrink is also onto pit road, as is Jonas Nakarian right now in the Radical Steel Series car. So the Radical drivers are able to go about 2 laps later than anyone else in this event, and that'll be interesting. We'll talk about that on the next episode of WCS Spotlight. But the battle continues for the race lead. Oli Picardo and iWCGPS, the 2 Glacier Racing drivers, going tete-a-tete right now in that battle for the 1st position. In fact, actually Picardo ran a little bit wide there, and that allows Yakoda to stay right behind him as they go underneath the Corvette bridge into turn number 6. The big question is, though, between Hugo Luis and Gregor Hutu, and it does seem to be that last time by, Hutu was back on pace, but get this, he is about 3 seconds back right now from those 2 Glacier Racing drivers. This is going to be very interesting to see in the last 10 and 15 laps of this race, whether Hutu can close back up to this, and we can see the magic from the 3-time iRacing.com World Championships Grand Prix Series champion, or whether or not that damage is going to actually relegate him to being 3 races in a row without a podium. So many more stories in the last couple of laps of this event. The big one, I think, right now, though, is that battle for what is essentially going to be P3 and 4 on the racetrack. Once timing and scoring update, Scott, between Luis and Hutu, because it doesn't think right now that Hugo has anything for Hutu.
No, it seems as you said that the whole complex of both their races has changed. It's now it's Hutu that has the upper hand with track position and the ultimate pace. He has pulled away slightly in this lap as they go across the line. A 34.8 for Hutu and a 34. In fact, they've matched each other, 34.8 each. But Hutu's was fractionally faster by about 0.03 of a second. Whereas we compare that to the Glacier Racing boys, they've done 34.9 for Pacala, 35.1 for Yakola. So possibly Hutu actually was the fastest man on track out of the four in the top four at the moment. So this could be essentially, as you said, could be the old Hutu magic coming back. Of course, you said he was just off the pace, but it's, as you said, it's that middle to the end part of the race where Hutu comes stronger. That's when he starts to turn the wick up on that Team Redline car and could potentially be closing in, because whether or not the two Glacier guys are holding each other up, I'm not sure, but Hutu seems to have, regardless if there was any damage to that car or not, doesn't seem to be any slowing him down by any chance. And the pace that Hugo Luis has shown just seems to have dropped off, because he's really not charging up to the back of Hutu at the moment, maybe sitting back and holding his tyres until the end of the race. But let's wait and see, of course, because as we said, the four cars could all close up as we did in Suzuka, and we could have one titanic scrap for this race lead and the podium places going to the end.
We'll get an update from our statistician as quick as we can, but I'm actually thinking, Jake, that perhaps Hugo put in a little bit too much fuel because he was longer in his pit box than anyone else. He was a little bit slow coming out. I've got a feeling like Hugo Luis actually has taken too much fuel, because it is showing in his top speed right now. The way that car is handling is not as nimble and as quick as we saw in that first Tim, with the amount of fuel that he's supposed to have left in that car. I am worried that perhaps Hugo's lost his chance for a podium in this event just by being on pit road a second too long.
Yeah, he was on pit road for a few seconds longer or so than Hutu and everyone else. He did seem to take a little longer, but his times are showing that as well. He just put in a 134.9, sorry, which compared to Hutu is slower. Hutu there putting in a 34.8 again. But on the pit stops, I have to go down to Jake Sturgis. What a jump he's made on them pit stops. He's made a 4-position jump from starting in 11th going into the pit stops. He's up into 7th now behind Isaac Price, just a second off of his teammate. Price also on the back of Botcha. This could be an interesting race here for the top 5.
It can be. By the way, Marcus Caton in the number 25 car, the Alienators machine, had an incident down at turn number 5, got himself into a single car spin. He has, however, been able to get his car back onto the racetrack and back going. He runs right now in the 30th position, scored as the last driver on the lead lap right now. Alexei Yakoda actually had a very slow lap that last time by a 135.8, slow by his standards. Perhaps the same way that Luis was on pit road for a little bit too long, Yakoda's worried about the fact he might not have taken enough fuel, and he has to save a tiny bit just to be able to get to the line. And let's not forget, iRacing rules state that you've got to get to the line, but also then you should be able to get your car back to pit road after the conclusion of the event, Scott.
Yeah, and that's going to be the crucial thing if these guys are possibly fuel saving a little bit. I mean, Pacala's just put his foot down and just absolutely gone and run away with it so far. I mean, again, it's fantastic. It's fascinating how all four of these drivers, their pace just all seems to just turned around and a complete polar opposite, because I think the only man whose pace has stayed consistent is Pacala's, because effectively he's up there in the lead and he's still running the same pace he had before his pit stop, whereas Yakola's has dropped off a little bit, Hutu's has increased, and Luis probably, as you said, may have put in a bit too much fuel, and he's not running at the same pace he had when he was leading at that point. So it's fascinating how this race has played out, and it's this second half of the race, after the pit stops shake out, and the run which before they made their pit stops, the in-laps, which made it crucial. And I think that Hutu really showed some of his true colours when he pumped in that in-lap, which allowed him to get closer and close that gap to the two Glacier Racing guys. But the man, of course, that really lost that was Hugo Luis, because at one point he was leading, now he's down to 4th off the podium. But he'll still be 4 races in 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 4th.
Just to give you an update, by the way, Stephen Michaels is out of the race. Lap number 34 down into turn number 3. We'll try and get yourself a replay of that up on your screen momentarily. He got himself onto that curbing and he slid into the tyre barrier. He is classified out of the race, and a bad start to the season gets even worse for Stephen Michaels, who is having a difficult day in qualifying, works himself through the field, but now is classified as out of this event. Last time by, 134.4 for Olif Pacala, 134.5 for Alexei Yakoda, 134.3 there for Gregor Hutu, and the slowest of those 4 drivers is Hugo Luis. And I tell you what, do not discount Andre Borcham, because he is still in a shot of getting himself closer to Hugo Luis if any of those drivers have fuel issues. But also, Isaac Price is close to the rear of Andre Borcham right now, and you've also got Jake Sturgis there. So it'll be an interesting inter-team battle between Price and Sturgis in the last 10 laps of this race. As for complete lap number 37, we are now down to 10 laps to go in this, the 4th round of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. For more information about the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series, head over to wcs.iracing.com for latest news, information, driver interviews and bios for both the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series and also the NASCAR Peak and Prix Series powered by iRacing.com. Also, if you're a new member to iRacing, head over to iRacing.com right now for half price off a 1 month, 3 month, 1 year or 2 year membership and join the massively multiplayer online racing service with over 45,000 members worldwide. Go to iRacing.com for more information about that one. And out front it is Oli Piccara leading the way with 10 laps to go. He started this race here today in the 3rd position. He got past by Martin Conke into turn number 2. He was able to get back past into turn number 5. However, since pit stops he has just been dominant and now has a 2.2 second advantage over Alexei Usiakola. Gregor Hutu runs in the 3rd place right now, has been able to build up a 1.6 second advantage over Hugo Louise in the past 3 laps or so, but never discount that number 3 3ID Motorsports car because he will be hoping that he can make it 3 races in a row that number 1 Team Redline car doesn't make the podium. We still have a total of 29 cars scored on the lead lap, just 2 retirees, and they are Martin Conke and Michelle Chesney, as we are now down to 9 laps to go in this event, with Oli Piccara still leading the way at 134.2 for him last time by, but Yakola is coming back, and I tell you what, the guy still struggling, Scott, is Hugo Louise in P4.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be scratching his head thinking where on earth has his pace gone, the pace that he had when he was leading this race early on, and it does seem to me he needs to work on his latter race pace that obviously after his pit stop, because he's the one that lost out the most. And especially he hasn't seemed to look the same ever since he got passed by UC Curlin. Whether or not that's rattled him, whether or not he's just not really enjoying it. We do know this is not a circuit that he particularly enjoys. He wasn't expected to be too strong, but of course, despite that, he did take pole position, did lead the early part of the race. But how it's all shaken out, in it seems that Gregor Hutu's starting to pull the gap on him now. He's about 2 seconds up the road. Hugo's now going to have to sit there thinking, well, 4th place, at least I'll be able to round out a perfect run of podiums with a 4th place. And the first 4 positions, as I said, he's finished in the first 4 races. So Hugo will have to sit back and try and reassess, I think, and unless things come back towards him in the final 8 laps, just have to sit here, take the 4th, take the points, hopefully try and retain his championship lead. He still has he had a 32-point advantage coming into this race, but at the end of it, we'll have to wait and see if he can retain it, but see exactly what his lead is. And also, of course, Oli Piccara, if he does win, will grab 2nd place in the championship and close in. So it's all to play for with 8 laps to go.
All to play for indeed, and it's all to play for outside the top 10 as well. Fulvio Barrazzini is having a battle with Mo Garfilo. To give you an update, by the way, on Yuhu Abe, he did lose 1 position in that sequence of pit stops. He was running inside the top 10. Of course, he pitted earlier than all the guys around him. He was one of the first drivers onto pit road. He's now scored in the 11th position, but Jake Heat is trying to close to the rear of Martin Patila. Right now, the gap between those 2 drivers is just half a second on the racetrack as they come down into turn number 14.
This is a battle I've been watching for the last few laps, or since ever he came out of the pits. This is a battle that is going to hot up in the last few laps. He wants that top 10 Abe. He's not done very well so far this season, but this race could be the one. Another one up in the top 5, or top 10, sorry. You got Isaac Price and Jake Sturgios. Sturgios closing every lap. He's trying to get that inter-team battle going.
He is trying to get that inter-team battle going, and of course, team pride means as much as anything else, but driver point is the important thing. For those of you who are new to the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series, yes, you've got the guys going for the championship, but also down the order, guys want to get into the top 25 in points to keep their license for the next year. So that's one thing that these drivers have got to bear in mind as Yuhu Abe continues his charge on Martin Patino. Other battles on the racetrack involve Mo Garfilo and Fulvio Barrazzini battling for P12 on the racetrack, and then also Paolo Mulia and Dion Verges, they are battling for P17 on the racetrack right now. They are separated by just a couple of seconds on the racetrack. Yuno Tamada is trying to close out Alex Simpson. Last time by, he was a tiny bit faster than Alex Simpson, about a tenth and a half faster. Gap between those drivers about 1.6 seconds on the racetrack, so there's still a lot to play for right now. But lap traffic could be interesting for these drivers over the last couple of laps as Marcus Caton and Lasse Brun Hansen get passed by Jake Sturgios and Isaac Price. We're continuing that battle for P6 on the racetrack right now. As far as things go, again, Alexei Usiakola dipped into the 133s. Oli Piccara still on 134s. Gregor Hutu still on 134s. Hugo Luis is starting to pick up the pace, but he's still 0.2 of a lap slower. And we'll hope to talk to Hugo about this after the race, Scott. But I really do think that he's got an extra 2-3 laps of fuel that he doesn't need in his car right now. And that's going to struggle him. And that's going to be one of those things we'll look back in about 5 races time and say, that's the mistake that I shouldn't have made in this championship.
Yeah, it does seem to be a rare miscalculation from Luis there to putting in a few extra laps than he needed, but whether or not that was due to give him a bit more extra stability, I'm not quite sure, but that doesn't seem to have worked in his favour. The other guys seem to have calculated their fuel strategy to perfection, which means that Hootie's now starting to pull away from his major rival, but even so, it's not enough to close in on the two latest racing guys, and it must be so agonising because looking from Hootie's point of view, looking for how he's driving, he can see Yuki Tsunoda in front of him, and Pecala's further couple of seconds up the road. And it must be so agonising that, of course, he is a 3-time champion, and despite the fact that if he does finish it, he will be on the podium, he's just not on the same pace, and it must be so frustrating for him and for Hugo to wonder exactly where it is they're going wrong.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that these drivers will have a long, hard look after this event. Of course, they're running every 2 weeks until the summer break, so not a lot of time to really figure out what's gone wrong. And we've been to 4 very different racetracks in this schedule so far. You know, you've had Spa, you've had Interlagos, you've had Suzuka and Road America. Very different racetracks, and we go to a different one again in Phillip Island in 2 weeks' time for the 5th round of the championship. And that track, I tell you what, anything that Suzuka and he has shown us, it can be completely wide open. As last time by Luis finally was faster than Gregor Hooser, but I think it really could be a case of a little bit too little too late between those drivers. Oliver Picard has got that race lead up to 2.5 seconds on the racetrack. We are going to quickly check in on that battle for P6 right now between Isaac Price, the rookie, and Jake Sturgios, the old driver. And Jake Sturgios, of course, is the only driver this year to be running in both the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series and also the Peak Antifreeze NASCAR Series powered by iRacing.com. He won an event a little bit early on in that series back at Las Vegas, but Sturgios, he is close to the rear of his teammate Isaac Price, but for Sturgios as well, a bit late with Hooter and Luis. He's a little bit miffed right now because he's used to being solidly in the top 5, and that's not the case of him this year. Sturgios hasn't had it all his own way, Scott.
No, he really hasn't. I mean, again, I think it surprised all of us. I think just about the impact that some of these guys who have come on stronger this year compared to last year, they've really had. I mean, Isaac Price, as I said, put on a great show in the final round last year at Montreal and put himself as definitely in the shop window for other teams to pick him up. And it seems as though that iNEC Racing have done a smart thing to bring him on board, and it's certainly paying off. Although Jake Sturgios probably wouldn't agree with that right now, as he's running just behind him in 7th. But Jake, of course, I think it's another one of those drivers, very vastly experienced. And maybe the fact that he's doing a double duty this year, both running the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series and the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series, powered by iRacing.com, maybe that's possibly playing on his mind. The fact that he's got to commit to 2 major top-line series in iRacing, maybe it's taking up too much of his time. I'm not 100% sure. We know he's possibly done that before in the past without any troubles, but maybe the fact that there's so many top-line drivers for this season at least is maybe making a difference, and maybe in the future he may have to make a decision if he wants which series he's more committed to, which one he may have to drop in order to stand a better chance in being a champion in either one.
Less than 5 laps to go in this event now, and Oli Picardo still leads away. Alexei Yusukoda in 2nd, Hutu 3rd, Luis in 4th, Borcha in 5th, Isaac Price in 6th, Jake Sturgios in 7th, Alex Simpson in 8th, Jonas Tamana in 9th, and then Martin Patillo rounds out your top 10. And we still have a total of 26 drivers scored on the lead lap. Matthias Egger and Marcus Caton have recently been put 1 lap down. 2 laps down is Megan Martin, Lasse Brun Hansen is 3 laps down, and Jeremy Bootaloo has had an issue and is now classified as out of the race. And that number 19 car, we talked about how good he is in the middle portion of the racetrack. He had an incident earlier on, was able to keep it going, but he is another driver, Jake, who had that moment down at the King, identical incident almost, what happened to Martin Kroenke, except the fact that that car just hit the wall, didn't spear into the air. But that kink can be difficult, and it's caught out 2 very good drivers in this series here today.
Yeah, the kink always one of the difficult parts of this track, especially with the tailwind that these drivers are facing today. A simple little mistake over the curb, this is going to be the end of your race, and maybe other drivers. He was lucky not to collect anyone when he hit the inside wall and then bounced back out into the outside wall. He locked down his brakes well, and he avoided every other car. He managed to get going again for a little bit of the portion, brought it back to the pit lane, but then that's where the end of his race was.
So we have got ourselves less than 5 laps to go in this race and still plenty to play for right now. The battle continues between Isaac Price and Jake Sturgis. They're still separated by just 1 second on the racetrack, but Jonas Waller was catching up to the rear of Alex Simpson. It does seem to be he's lost a little bit of time that last lap compared to that number 35 driver, the Apex Racing UK driver of Alex Simpson, as he had a bit of a horrible moment down in turn number 2 as well. Mo Garfilo has been passed now by Fulvio Barazzini, and that's going to be a little bit of encouragement for Barazzini because it's been a tough start to the season for the Triple M team. He's able to get himself past Mo Garfilo. It's not the top 10 he would have wanted, but he's getting mighty close to one.
Yeah, he really is, and these two guys, of course, Barazzini and Mo Garfilo, are down there at the moment in the bottom of the top 25, so of course they're the ones that need all the points that they can get going forwards in the next few races to ensure that either they can rise out of it or give them the best possible chance of staying in that zone, but above the top 20, above the drop zone for the top 25. Going forward to remain themselves in contention for a World Championship licence. But Fulvio, yeah, is definitely a top-line driver. Again, another one of those guys that we really would expect to be higher up the field, just hasn't been able to adjust to the start of the season as well as others have done. So Barazzini and both Mo Garfilo definitely contenders to get some decent points finishes, and I do hope that they do start to improve their pace as the season goes on and we see them regularly up there fighting for top 10 finishes, as they are just outside on the fringes in 12th and 13th. But still, long way to go in the season, still a lot more races for them to try and develop their car and their driving style going forwards for this season. So hopefully they can start to push on, but I think for this race they have to just kind of take it and swallow it and move on to the next one at Phillip Island in a couple of weeks' time, where hopefully they'll be a little bit quicker and be a bit more near the front as they'd love to be.
Dion Verges and Paolo Muglia are still battling towards the rear of the top 20. Verges currently is classified in the 18th position after qualifying here today in P25, and Paolo Muglia in that 48 car running in the 17th position, which is exactly where he started. Now, one of the interesting things about this race, Scott, is that really we haven't seen the huge charges through the field as we've seen the first 3 rounds of the championship, and that's down to, I think, a number of issues. Mainly, strategy's been very close here today. No one really tried that 2-stopper. Everyone went on the 1-stopper. Attrition has been very low here today. Yes, we lost some very big names, but overall, attrition's been very, very light, and people's not been able to make up places that way. And also, it was a very clean start to this race here today. Everyone was single file very quickly, and I think the weather conditions had made it a little bit more difficult for passing for some of these drivers.
I have to agree in some, I have to agree in some cases. It's not necessarily been processional, but it hasn't been effectively action-packed either. Where it's kind of been just in the middle. We have seen some great passing, including that one that Lexi Yakola made on the outside of Hugo Luisa, which I think will be waxing lyrical for the rest of the season anyway. But I mean, yeah, it has been a pretty simple race. Not too many incidents. We've had a couple of top-line drivers go out. Of course, Bootloop and of course Martin Kroenke, who was running so strong in 5th place, and we expected if he hadn't have done to be up there fighting between these guys, and he could have been the catalyst had he not made that mistake at the kink. But nonetheless, it's been a fairly simple race, fairly action-packed, and as you said before, as it was last year, strategy has been the dominant factor rather than on-track action and overtaking. It's been whoever can get the faster in laps, who can make the most of their pace, has been able to get themselves into the winning positions. And right now, on the penultimate lap, with just a lap and a bit to go, Wally Picala is looking incredibly good to take his first win. It's going to be a very popular one, of course, and of course it'll be the first team this season that have taken more than one victory. Of course, it was one for Ferrari Motorsport, one for Team Redline. Now it could potentially be looking as though Glacier Racing are going to double up with another first-time win in the championship. And my God, I'm sure you're going to agree, Will. If he pulls this off, it's going to be a popular one.
It's going to be a hugely popular one. Ollie Picala really has fallen in to the place of iRacing's most popular driver in the WCS, replacing the crown that Pablo Lopez had for a couple of years. But Ollie Picala comes out of turn number 14, this time by the white flag in hand. One more lap to go in the 4th round of the championship, and the gap between Picala and Yakoda right now, that is a 1.9 second advantage that Picala has over his teammate. Interesting point as well, you got 3 Finnish drivers right now on the top 3 steps of the podium. There's only 3 steps on the podium, but on the podium. But Gregor Hutu, the 3-time champion, is on the bottom rung of it, and he's got 2 younger drivers, 2 less than experienced drivers ahead of him. Yakola in 2nd and Picala in that 1st place. For Hugo Luis, it will really be a story of what could have been. He qualified on pole position in his final lap of qualifications, and he was able to get himself a good start to this race, but then he got past that beautiful pass by Yakoda on the outside down into turn number 1, and then that pit stop will forever haunt him. He will be wondering, what did I do in that pit stop that was so wrong that it put me well down the order? Because right now, he is 3.5 seconds back from the rear of his nemesis, Gregor Hutu, in that number 1 car. And of course, Andre Borcher rounds out your top 5. However, for Oli Picard, this is going to be the most difficult 5 corners he's ever done in Grand Prix racing here on the iRacing.com simulator, as he comes down into Canada corner for the final time. Now, just 2 corners left to go. Nicely on the curb there on the exit of Canada corner into Bill Mitchell Bend for the final time underneath the Cola Bridge and down into turn number 14. He just has to hope he's got enough fuel to get to the end. He will come up the hill underneath the Canada Bridge, and there's going to be 4 different winners in the first 4 rounds of the championship. Oli Picard is a winner in the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series, and what a victory by him. Alexei Yusiakola in second, Gregor Hutu in 3rd position, Hugo Luis in the 4th place there, and the top 4 drivers have each won an event this season. However, it is the number 27 car of Oli Picard that gets his first victory. It's the first time this season that the same team has won 2 events, and of course Glacier Racing, it's their 2nd win in a row. If you thought that Suzuka was a fluke, Scott, think no more. Glacier Racing are in this championship, and it's going to be a fascinating one from here on out.
Absolutely. For not for 1 second did I think that win for UCI was a fluke. He definitely earned that one, and so did Ollie. As I said, this is probably going to be one of the most popular victories we've ever had in the World Championship Grand Prix Series, and well deserved. He put on a storming performance around his pit stop, an excellent stop by the Glacier Racing boys, and somehow with the in-lap he had and the performance he put in that second stint, he absolutely dominated. And I hope this is the first of many for Ollie, because sometimes these race victories don't come so often. You have to really work for them, and this is one that Ollie really works for, and I hope that he treasures this one, because it was just a stunning performance by both guys in Glacier Racing. Their outside pass on Hugo Luis by Alexei Yusiakola surely cannot be beaten for pass of the year, already only on race 4, and it has now left the likes of Gregor Hutu, Hugo Luis and others wondering just what do we have to do to get back on pace, because really these past 2 races, for not just for the top line teams but for the whole championship, it's been a wake-up call, because they haven't really expected, in all fairness, these guys to come in and make such a huge impact in 2014. So like I said, My 3ID, Team Red Light and all the rest of the teams, they're going to have some thinking to do and some head scratching in the next couple of races to figure out exactly how they're going to get back on pace to stop this potential runaway dominance that could happen if Alexei and Ollie are allowed to just do their thing as they have done at Suzuka and here at Road America. But yeah, congratulations to them and to all 3 Finns on the podium. Wonderful performance by everyone.
Wonderful, amazing performance by those drivers. We're going to run through your final race results then from this, the 4th round of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. And taking his first victory in the WCS is Glacier Racing's Oli Picard in the number 27 car. Alexei Yusiakola in 2nd. Gregor Hutu in 3rd. The first time you've had 3 Finnish drivers on the podium in WCS history. Hugo Luis in 4th. Andre Borcher in 5th. Isaac Price in the 6th position with Jake Sturgis in 7th. Alex Simpson in 8th. Euron Tamada in 9th. And then Martin Patila rounding out your top 10. Yuhu Abe in 11th. Fulvio Barazzini in 12th. Mogar Filo in the 13th position with Ilka Hapana in 14th. Antoine Heglin in 15th. Paolo Mulia in 16th. Dion Burgess 17th. Paul Ilbrink 18th. Jonas Nakurin in 19th. And then David Corbs round out your top 20. Rest results coming up on your screen momentarily. Only 5 retirees from this event. Jeremy Bootley, Stephen Michaels, Martin Cronke and Michelle Mancusi. It was a DNF for Fabio De Carmo, as he did not start this event. We'll be right back for the RaceSpotTV post-race show in just a moment's time. After these short messages and a word from our friends at iRacing, you're watching the 4th round of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series exclusively live on iRacing Live and RaceSpotTV. We will be right back. So then, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to RaceSpotTV's presentation of the 4th round of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. And what a day it has been for Finland here today. Glacier Racing, the all-Finnish team, claiming yet another 1-2 in this race. But it's this time Olli Pekala going to the top step of the podium, with Alexei Usiakola falling in behind him in P2. Gregor Hutu 3rd, Hugo Luis 4th, Andre Borgia in 5th, and they ran out your top 5. But overall, Scott, what a race it has been here today. We've had everything. We've had fuel tragedy, we've had passing, we've had excitement, but we've also had another new winner. The first time in WCS history, we've had 4 different winners in 4 races.
It wasn't completely action-packed, but it certainly was a fantastic race for many reasons, and primarily because, of course, Olli Pekala put in such a brilliant performance, and it really was that stint he put in around his pit stop that he managed to get such a great in-lap in, and somehow managed to leapfrog both Hugo Luis and his teammate Alexei Usiakola to take the lead and eventually the victory. And I'll tell you what, he is now, as you said, taken over the mantle as being the most popular driver on the grid from Pablo Lopez. And you can see why, because with that victory, he's going to be smiling about that one all the way to Phillip Island in 2 weeks' time. That's been such an awesome victory, and I really hope this is the first of many, because he's shown he has the talent, and he's, of course, I remember that he was also talking about back in that interview that we did for Glacier TV, talking about how he was almost at Twister Racing at one point, of course, but he got the call to go to Glacier Racing. And I think he'd be smiling and thinking that that was the best move he ever made, because look at the result it's got him now. He's got himself a 2nd place and a victory in the space of 2 races. Wonderful stuff.
Jake, thoughts? What a race.
Yeah, what a race that was. Ollie definitely showing why he's one of the best to be in this series. Same as Jacola. They're both going to be the best drivers this series. They show they can be up there. They've fought together. The pit stops were incredible, though. The way Ollie's managed to come from 4th all the way into 1st. Well, what can you say about him? He's a future talent.
What a great race that we've had here today. We are now going to... We'll talk to our top 2 drivers in just one moment's time, because I think because of the fact that we've had a first time in WCS history 3 Finnish drivers on the podium, I might just have to play this. Of course, the Finnish national anthem there. Olli Pekala, welcome to WCS Victory Lane. Welcome to the top step of the podium. You almost had it a couple of times this season, but now you finally got it. You're a winner. How's it feel?
Thanks. It's pretty amazing that national anthem you played that gave me a lot of goosebumps. It's truly amazing. The day when I woke up, I didn't expect I will be even in the podium. We struggled a bit. And when I entered the qualifying, I was thinking that, okay, let's try to finish top 10. But yeah, it was a tough race for me. I just tried to keep my car on the track and tried to make not that much mistakes on the track and hope that get few places with that. And this is amazing feeling. I've waiting for this for so long, and yeah, it's finally here.
Well, we'll talk about qualifying first, because of course the first couple of rounds of the season, qualifying was kind of difficult for you. Got it together, of course, in Suzuka, but how difficult was qualifying here with those huge crosswinds and track conditions haven't been favourable here today?
Enormously difficult. I mean, you can go with the easy setup and easy driving, take it easy and hit like 33.5 or so with my driving. And but if you want the pole, you need to be precise here in this track. There are a huge amount of downwind, what causes difficulties in brakings. Then our side wind, very, very difficult to turn into the corner. So you have to be extremely precise. And as you saw, there wasn't not much gap in the qualifying. So it was really tough to get that P3 there.
And then, of course, you got yourself P3 on qualifying, then got yourself to the race. At the same point that your teammate made that pass on Hugo Louise, you made that pass on Gregor Hutu. But it's been a bit of a weird race here today. Take us through some of the challenges that you've had to deal with fuel, with tyre management, all of those things.
Yeah, the first thing, it was basically learning to drive in the dirt here, because all that we practiced is a clean air stints, or one stint what we did, and it's pretty difficult to adapt the dirtier driving to your in the middle of the race and learn it and how to go fast. And then I was thinking that okay, I will just lean back and drive behind Greger or Alexi, and then Alexi made pass to Greger and catched Hugo. I was catching Greger. I was at that point I was thinking that okay, guys have like 35 laps of fuel, so why are we catching them? And then I passed Greger. He gave me room quite easily, and yeah, the crucial point in this race was that pit. We had the same amount of fuel with Alexi, but he consumed a bit more, so he had to pit one lap earlier, and I just got the P1 by that leapfrog Hugo, and there were basically the points. The second stint was securing the P1. So.
And, of course, not only did you claim victory for the first time in WCS history with 3 Finnish drivers on the podium. As a Finnish driver, overall, how proud of you of that achievement, knowing that you beat Hutu on the racetrack cleanly, you beat Louise on the racetrack cleanly, but also you will forever be known as the guy that led the Finnish 1-2-3.
It's amazing feeling. It's quite undescribable.
Well, I hear there's a little party going on in Finland next week on one of the famous glacier racing meetups. How entertaining is that going to be?
Probably a killer race. Awesome.
Well, we'll let you stick around. We'll let you have a chat in Finnish in just one moment's time. Alexi Jussiakola, he came home in the second position. Alexi almost got it done, but it seemed to be not quite close today.
Yeah, hi Will, and I don't know what to say. Yesterday I did my first tests with race fuel, and I drive like 70 laps and crashed it, and after that I just trusted the car, and yeah, qualifying was pretty hard. We were we had no any tips at any clue how fast others are going, and so early practice we go the 32 high, and end of the week we were just pushing and more. We were going like 32 mid, and after a first lap and my second failed lap, I was okay, this is it. I cannot be like top 10 or something, and I think everyone else had same problems in the qualifying, so it was pretty hard, and pretty satisfied with fifth on the grid, and start was pretty good. I got outside of Olli, and we kind of know that who will be first in the first corner will be going there, and after that I just thought that okay, now I have to get this car going, and me and Olli, we know that we had 31 laps of fuel, and I was not so sure because I was only 17 laps training laps, so I did not know how close it's gonna be, but after the first 10 or 15 laps we were showing that Greger and Hugo were a little bit slower, and I was thinking, oh no, this is gonna be a problem, they are gonna be on the full tank or something, because they were so slow there, and car was just amazing, and I got the pass at Greger, and after that I was catching Hugo, and my team boss were shouting to my mic, not mic, my headphones, that you are almost half a second faster than Hugo. Stop killing yourself out there or something. But the car was just flying. I were not pushing too hard, and after that I got passed Hugo on the first corner. It was a kind of an exciting moment there. Car was a little bit sideways there, and after that I just tried to keep the pace, and I was ashamed that I had not the fuel for like Olli had, but well, that happens. Let's see if I take 1 kilogram more on the next race.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's talk about that pass again. Outside of turn number 1, it is already one of the nominations for pass of the year. How did you do it? I mean, I know you had the advantage, you were side by side. Hugo went defensively into the corner. How did you make it stick on the outside line into turn number 1? No other driver's done that all race long.
Well, basically that wind was like you go full throttle, sixth gear, 300 kilometers per hour in the straight. Then you lift and change fifth gear and go full throttle at the corner when you're alone. That's like it's done. And I just went left side of Hugo and did not brake at all. And I just lift my gears and put it fifth gear, full throttle. Then I saw, oh no, this is gonna be understeer. I just lifted to fourth gear and full throttle. Then the car got sideways, but still managed to survive.
It was so close for you, literally 1 kilogram of fuel. But you've got Glacier Racing have had 2 victories in the last 2 races. In fact, they're the only team this season to have 2 victories. Now we go to Phillip Island. I know it's a track I remember seeing in the Pro Series of Road Racing. You were just fabulous there a couple of years back. What are your chances going into the 5th round of the championship? And also, are you 2 drivers now, of you and Ollie, now championship contenders?
Well, I had that vacation, and I have to miss that Watkins Glen race, so I will be one race short there, and only lost his 30 points in the Interlagos race because that server bug. So I think we need to push hard and make our statement in the track. And yeah, Phillip Island is great track. Depends on the wind and how the clouds are there and all of that. So how ours get the car going there. But it's pretty amazing track and I like it.
Well, again, we'll let you have a chat with Joni in finish in just a moment's time. But congratulations, P2 for you in this race. And he didn't finish on the podium this time around, but Hugo Louise led Friday Motorsports Charge by claiming 4th place in this event. And Hugo, when you put it into perspective, did it really come down to that pit stop for you? And what happened in that pit stop?
Well, pit was very okay. Hello, Will, and everyone who is watching. I'll talk about the race in general. I not going to say that as an excuse, but I couldn't properly practice in the beginning of the week because I had some personal problems. I had a car accident, so I had so much things to fix. And finally, in the middle of the week, I had some time to practice, but I couldn't adapt to this weather at all. The car was handling trash in that wind, so I just kept in mind that that race was going to be tough for me, and I just wanted to put some points to try to continue to lead the championship. So finally yesterday I couldn't find some pace, but I knew it would be not enough still. Hopefully I could get pole, but I knew that my race pace would not be good enough. So I was confused in the middle of my first stint because you never know what others are going to do in the strategy. So I was hoping for Alexei to be a bit lighter in field than me. So when he was coming so fast, I was like, no, okay, I can not defend so hard. but still I was going to defend the position, and then I stick to the inside, and he passed me in the outside like I was stopped. I was like, what? Super grip, and then there was I think it was the best pass we had this season. It was really great. I just wanted to park the car because his pass was so awesome. But yeah, great work by him. And then I figured out that he was going to be on the same stretch than me, so I knew that I would be never able to catch him again because he had so much better pace. And when Ollie stayed on the track as well, I thought, well, that's a race to come third or fourth. Gregor stayed a bit longer as well, so I lost the position. There was a bit of scary moments with him and the other backmarker. I was just happy that Gregor didn't have damage at all because it wouldn't be fair. But anyway, fourth is still a great result for the championship, and this race definitely shows that we need to do some more work in our car because Glasser has some kind of Mercedes engine, so we need to do some work to get them. And next race will be exciting because this one we ever thought that it would be maybe a single fire or something, but no, it was a great race, so we are looking forward to the next race. And I think we never had so far in the WCS season ever 4 different winners in the first 4 races. That's quite exciting, to be honest.
Well, yeah, and you're completely right. First time ever, 4 different winners. And we are really going back to the glory days with yourself and Jesse Nieminen and Hutu and Klaus. It's been a while since we've had so many competitive drivers in the WCS, and I think you summed it up perfectly there. But your thoughts going into the next round of the championship at Phillip Island, can you bounce back? Because, I mean, overall, 3IDs are still a very strong team with a number of drivers scored in the top 10, despite the fact that Martin Kroenke, for example, today had that incident at the King, putting him out of the race. You still got a good, solid team behind you, and is that going to be important as you prepare for the next round of the championship?
Yeah, for sure. We have been working a lot, but we need to work even more to get a good car for the next race. I'm looking forward to it. I just want to use that moment to thank the Forza for the support and 3ID for the awesome team they are.
And we also hope that you get better soon, of course, from your road incident the other day. Hugo Luis didn't get a podium, but he finished in the 4th place in today's event. And, as promised, we'll hand it over to Glacier TV and Glacier Racing's Yoni Backman. He's going to have a word with Olli Pekala and Alexei Usiakola in finish. Yoni, take it away.
Cheers, dude. No niin, mitä tähän voi sanoa? Odotettiin kaikkien aikojen tylsintä kisaa, myötätuulikisaa, ja sitten tulikin kaikkea muuta. Taitaapi olla 2 vuoteen jännin kisa, viihdyttävin kisa, ja sitten vielä taisi tulla koko DVC-historian hienoin ohitus ala Uusijaakkola, ja sitten vielä Suomen ensimmäinen 3-voitto ikinä, että miltä tuntuu, Olli?
Tossa kun tuo kansallislaulu soi, niin kyllähän tuossa aika kylmät väreet tosiaan tuli, että Suomelle saatiin 3-voitto, itse pääsi olleen sillä korkeammalla podiumilla, ihan mahtavaa fiilistä. Kisaan lähdettiin siitä, että jos top 5 on päässä, niin se on tosi hyvä, ja top 10 niin todennäköinen, mutta tämmöisen tuloksen, kun pystyttiin repaaseen, niin aivan uskomaton fiilis. En olisi kyllä ikinä ottanut. Hieno ottaa ensimmäinen voitto ja Suomelle 3-voitto tästä, aivan mahtavaa.
Ja käydään nyt Aleksin kanssakin sitten, käys nyt sitten suomeksi vielä toi sun ohituksesi, josta todennäköisesti tulee vuoden ohitus tai DVC-historian paras ohitus, niin käys nyt pikaisesti läpi suomeksi se sama homma.
Joo, kiitos Jani. No siis auto vaan kulki aivan älyttömästi, että ei ollut mitään rajaa siinä, ja taisi olla mieskin tekissä, että ihan niin kuin mentiin ihan kuutamolla se eka stintti, ja kumminkin DVC-mestari Huuko niin on tosi nopea jätkä, ja otin sitä 0,5 sekkaa per kierros kiinni, niin en mä tiedä mistä se johtui, kai meidän auto sitten vaan kulki tosi hyvin siinä, ja tosiaan pääsin siihen pääsuoralle imuun ja seuraava mutka on vastatuuleen, niin siinä on aika hyvä pito. Ja vähän samaa reenattiin Ollin kanssa tuossa yhtenä päivänä, että ajetaan vähän rintarinnan ja haastetaan toisiaan. Niin. Ja siinä Hugo otti sisälinjan ja mä ajattelin, että no oikeastaan tämä on vähän parempikin niin, että kun voi puskea vähän kovempaa sinne, kun tietää, että ei saa mennä leveäksi, eikä siinä oikeastaan menetä mitään, kun vähän käy hiekalla. Mutta ei siinä kutosvaihteella, seiskavaihteella vähän reilu 300 vauhtia ja sitten vaan jarrua ja kaasupohjassa rajoitinta vasten nelosvaihteella, niin sehän meni ihan nätisti siinä. Ja Hugo antoi hyvin tilaa siinä ja ei siinä ollut oikeastaan mitään erikoista. Että normi hommia.
Normi hommaa, mutta ei ollut varmaan, odotitko lähtöruudut 3 ja 4, lopputulos 1-2 ja sitten vielä se Greger Huttu siitä kolmanneksi, niin oli niin kuin, sanotaan, että kuinka monta prosenttia susta uskoo, että toi on lopputulos?
No oikeastaan ennen aika-ajoa niin oli aika pimento, että mitä vauhtia porukka menee ja tiedettiin Ollin kanssa, että kaikkemme on tehty ja auto pitäisi olla hyvästi kiinni. Ja aika-ajoa meni aika penki alle, mutta sitten huomattiinkin, että ei muillakaan näköjään mennyt oikein hyvin ja en tiedä sitten joko muut omaa tahtiaan siinä, että oliko auto sitten kumminkin varaa vielä parantaa, mutta meillä ainakin olisi ollut, että ihan kuskit teki omia virheitään ja oltiin sitten vasta siinä 3. ja 4. ruudussa. Ja en tiedä, kyllähän se niin kuin periaatteessa ekastintin aikana selvisi, että ei ne kovempaa mene kuin me. Ja uskottiin jopa Ollin kanssa vähän, että olisiko niillä joko sama bensamäärä tai sitten vähän enempi. Ja no niillähän oli sitten kumminkin vähän vähemmän bensaa, joten me sitten vähän pitillä saatiin siinä etua, mutta oikeastaan ekastintin aikana niin uskon, että 3., 4. ja ainakin otetaan, mutta en olisi kyllä uskonut, että noustaan sinne kärkeen asti. Tietysti vähän vedettiin hurjia ohituksia siinä, mutta näin se menee.
Ja tosiaan niin kuin tässäkin nyt suoraan lähetykseen hihkastaan samaan ääneen, että tiimi tarjoaa sitten täyden illallisen sitten, kun seuraava kerran satutaan saman katon alle. Että munkin puolesta kyllä kiitoksia ihan tiimin puolesta ja kiitos ihan selostuskopin puolestakin ihan uskomattomasta kisasta, että oli kyllä älyttömän kiva seurata. Haluatteko vielä heittää terkut jollekin loppuun?
Terveiset perheille ja serkuille ja tuttaville ja tietenkin Kuhalle terkut ja kiitoksia Aleksille ja tiimille ja sponsoreille Glacier TVlle ja Datalitteralle.
Joo, ei siinä. Kiitoksia tiimille ja Ollille hyvästä työstä ja Elomaa Aleksille hyvästä supportista. Tehnyt koko kauden hyvää työtä ja ilman Aleksia niin me ei oltaisi Ollin kanssa täällä kädessä. Ja tietysti Kankaala Karille ja sitten tietysti tälle Järvisen Karille, joka on meikäläisen trelleissä ollut tallikaverina ja tehnyt hyvää työtä silloin. Ja muistan, kun se meni niin kovaa, että mä en uskonut, että miten noin kovaa voi päästä. Ja sieltä sitä on lähdetty liikenteeseen. Kiitoksia kaikille ja katsotaan, jos tänään lähtisi vaikka radalle, niin lämmittelisi saunan tossa ja pistetään taksi pihaan ja lähdetään Alavuudelle.
Se on varma.
Okay, I think that pretty much wraps it up. Will, you want to continue?
Thank you very much, and I did understand every single word of that, as you know.
You did.
I remember the last bit. Ollie said thank you very much to Alexia Loma and to Data Litera and etc. etc. There we are, proof. Rafael Sunk from iRacing Brazil. Very quickly, gonna have a quick chat with Hugo Luiz in Portuguese.
Okay, Will, can I repeat because my microphone is muted? Okay. First of all, I would like to congratulate the Glacier Racing for the awesome race and top 2 drivers, and to congratulate the Finns for the top 3 in the race. And now to Hugo. Hugo, você fez uma qualificação muito boa, conseguiu um ótimo resultado na qualificação e isso parecia que ia te trazer um bom resultado também na corrida. Parecia que você tinha conseguido um bom pace, mas acabou não acontecendo. Deu para perceber que os carros da Glacier Racing e até mesmo o Greg Ruto, que não teve uma boa qualificação, fosse mais rápido que você no pace final. O que você acha que contribuiu para isso?
A equipe tem que trabalhar bastante para a próxima corrida, porque mesmo com a quantidade de trabalho que a gente vem fazendo desde a primeira etapa, a Glacier conseguiu fazer um carro estupidamente rápido para a corrida, e isso se mostrou mais obviamente nessa corrida. Então, apesar de ter feito a pole, eu sabia que o ritmo de corrida talvez não fosse tão bom assim, e quando o Alex estava chegando muito rápido, eu só torci para que ele tivesse mais leve do que eu. E quando eu já estava na volta 30, ele entrou junto comigo, eu falei, agora lascou. E o Oli permaneceu mais algumas voltas, o Gregor também, isso contribuiu para que eles ganhassem mais tempo. E acabei perdendo a posição para ambos. Mas eu sabia que mesmo ficando em quarto seria uma boa corrida para o campeonato, então só queria me manter por ali, evitar qualquer tipo de incidente bobo ou algo do tipo, e tentar, junto com a equipe, trazer uma solução para poder melhorar o ritmo de corrida já para a próxima etapa, porque isso vai ser importante, já que daqui a pouco o campeonato vai começar a ter as definições. Então, se é uma hora que a gente tem que responder, vai ter que ser agora.
É isso aí. Eu queria só que você falasse rapidinho sobre o setup, né, e como a 3ID Motorsport começou a temporada, começou muito bem e tá bem também, né, nesse momento, mas parece que a Glacier Race tem um ritmo de corrida melhor, apesar de na qualificação vocês ainda serem bem competitivos. O que fazer aí para essas próximas etapas? Treinar mais? O vento atrapalhou realmente muito hoje? Ou o setup não era competitivo o suficiente?
Foi um pouco dos dois. O vento realmente estava horroroso. Para se adaptar ao vento estava muito difícil. E fazer o setup baseado nessa dificuldade também é muito difícil. Mas a gente geralmente sempre tenta começar o mais cedo possível a se preparar e tenta pegar o máximo de dados possível do carro na pista para poder trabalhar já em como o carro vai se comportar durante a corrida, na pressão dos pneus, a altura, para tentar talvez ganhar alguma vantagem aerodinâmica, mas mesmo assim no nível que é o campeonato, achar um pelinho de diferença já contribui bastante, e isso é o mais difícil. Então o negócio é treinar mais, preparar mais, tentar conseguir mais dados para ver se a gente consegue responder.
Ok, obrigado Hugo. Thank you, Will.
And thank you very much to Rafael Sank from iRacing Brazil there, to Yoni Backman from Glacier TV and Glacier Racing, and also to Alexei Yusiakola, Oli Pakala and Hugo Luis for talking to us. Scott, final thoughts. In 2 rounds we head over to the 4th round of the championship. It's going to be at Phillip Island. It's going to be phenomenal. It's one of the fastest tracks that we go to all season long. It's short compared to some of the races that we've had so far this season, but my god, the racing is going to be astoundingly good.
It is. Well, I think first of all it's going to be the 5th round of the championship, because today was round 4, so...
You know what I mean. I made one mistake in a 2-hour broadcast, and this is the one that you're trying to get onto me for.
I'm only playing, you know that. Yeah, obviously Phillip Island, fantastic circuit. Obviously, one of the prides of Australia, of course, with many circuits out there, including Bathurst and, of course, the Melbourne Grand Prix circuit, amongst which there are many great Australian circuits, and Adelaide, of course. But Phillip Island, yeah, of course, it's a wonderful circuit, very flowing and twisting, lots of elevation changes, lots of long corners. Not that many big braking zones, but it's certainly a fantastic track, and we're going to expect to see the likes of Alexei Yusiakola and possibly Gregor Hutu, those guys really stepping it up, and maybe hopefully that Ollie can put in another great performance. But yeah, brilliant racing today, and hopefully, as Hugo mentioned, it's the first time we've had 4 different winners in the first 4 races, and this season just keeps on breaking records and keeps on becoming one of the best that we've ever had in the championship. And I really hope it continues going forwards, because it's set to be one awesome spectacle all the way to the final round.
I'm going to get my own back on you. Before Hugo said it, actually I said it, and also Jake said it as well. So there you are. You're not the one paying attention either.
Fair enough. We're even.
We're even. Jake, first time commentating on the WCS. What a race it's been. It's not been a race of incessant passing, but it's been a thinking race. It's been a race that these drivers have had to actually, drive, rather than just being a race of them just hot lapping. They've had to drive this race today, especially in those top 5 positions. 4 different winners. The top 3 for Finnish drivers. What a race it's been.
That's got to be one of the best iRacing races I've seen in ages. The standards and the quality of racing in that was incredible. The passing, some of their moves. It's not something you see in normal any day racing on iRacing. It's the best of the best racing. But keep breaking records, as Scott said, and it's going to get better. So hopefully I'll be back in 2 weeks. We'll never know.
We'll do it all again in 2 weeks' time. Very quickly, some statistics about the race. We had 4 lead changes today. We had a strength of field of 5,509. And your fastest lap of the race, well, that was set by Alexei Yusiakoda, a time of 1 minute 33.186. And if you want to know where that would put him in the grid for this race, that would put him in the top 5. So showing how fast those Glacier Racing drivers were, especially come the end of a fuel stint. And to run through your championship standings after 4 rounds of the championship, it is Hugo Louis still leading the way with 157 points. Oli Picard has 133 points. He's moved up into 2nd in the championship. Hutu is 3rd right now, with Jake Sturgis in 4th. Martin Petila rounds out your top 5. Martin Kroenke, after coming into this round in P2, slips all the way down to P7 after that incident, putting him out of the race. And that concludes our coverage of the 4th round of the 2014 iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. For more information about the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series and the Peak Antifreeze NASCAR Series, head over to wcs.iracing.com for the latest news, interviews and biographies of both drivers and teams. The next round of the Peak Antifreeze Series, powered by NASCAR.com, will be taking place in just a couple of weeks' time, and that will be on April 22nd at Richmond International Raceway. It'll be live on iRacing Live, PSR TV, and the Motor Racing Network, MRN. Our next stop of the Grand Prix World Championship Series will be in 2 weeks' time, April 26th, and that will be at Phillip Island. 69 laps around the fast track down under, and we'll be here live exclusively on RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live with the WCS Spotlight Show, qualifying, and then the race uninterrupted itself as well. This has been a RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live presentation of the 4th round of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series from Road America here today, where it was a finish 1-2-3. We had our 4th different winner of 4 different races, and we welcome Oli Picard to an elite club that is known as a WCS winner. From myself, Will Vincent, from Scott Woodward, from Jake Cameron and Raphael Sank on cameras, we'll talk to you all in 2 weeks' time. If you thought the WCS was good last year, it's better this year, and I tell you what, anything, and I mean anything, can happen this season. Bye-bye.